Hello, good morning and welcome. I'm Ayo Makinde.
And I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Welcome to this very beautiful morning. It's a bit of rainy. I didn't expect the rain this morning.
I know.
I woke up to it.
I can expect the rain anytime. These days, people save up on electricity a lot. I mean, if only in the hotels. You go to a hotel, especially the ones that don't have rugs in them, the floor is oozing cool. A lot of cold stuff, you know, all over the place. So a good number of people are saving up on electricity these days. So I don't know whether we should say that that's a good thing or the other thing.
Yeah, maybe nature is helping us better manage our finances. the economics of nature's intervention. Because I've even observed myself, I'm on band A and I'm not happy about it, by the way. So for the record.
Oh, really?
I can never be happy about it. So I realize that I'm spending maybe 40% less or so because now the place is cold. You don't have to put on all the air conditioners and all. Just basically the refrigerators and the basic things that are supposed to be turned on. But the other ones, as you know, kind of increases your rates or your bill because of nature. The weather is always very cold. Summerly cold. Well, now we spend less, at least for now.
Let's see how
the heat comes.
Absolutely. So let's see how nature will help us with these reverse local government elections as well. A number of things. Well, you have been. I've observed you, Jeffrey. Your passion concerning the Rivers State is what I would say communicable.
Yeah, it's not just Rivers. I'm very passionate about Nigeria, but Rivers is because I was born and bred there, so I understand a lot about Rivers State. I understand its politics, I understand its heritage, I understand its people. You know, I'm not from Rivers. My mom is from Rivers. My father is from Akwa Ibom, but I was born and bred there.
Chairmen, you are from Rivers.
But I'm more of a Port Harcourt boy, so that's basically it. And the dynamics are always very interesting. It's always like, it's always very intense. When it comes to Rivers politics, whatever level, whether it's at the state level or the local government level, because you know the way politics works in Nigeria, whoever controls the local government level, technically by the politicians and how they look at things, actually controls the state because of structure, which was the bone of contention that brought us to all the shenanigans of politics that landed in state of emergency, and now we're in the state of emergency in Rivers State and all of that. So it's always an interesting space. In fact, if you look at the records, Rivers is very interesting on one hand. The governors are always very powerful. There has never been a governor in Rivers State who hasn't aspired to be either a president or a vice president since 1999. Peter Odili, Nyesom Wike, Rotimi Amechi. Now, the new one who is suspended, we're not sure where it's going because the war chest is heavy and it's always very interesting. But another thing you also look at Rivers State is that predecessors and their successors are always at loggerheads, and the dynamics are quite funny. So Rotimi Amechi fell out with Peter Odili, and then Wike fell out with his brother and best friend, Rotimi Amechi. And then we now see Fubara falling out with Wike. So successively, every governor has always been at each other. So why I had to explain all of this is why we got to this point of emergency, and now we're trying to do an election within an emergency. It's always interesting. So we'll see how things play out.
You know, you're not done with that. Just to let you let the viewer know that. But these are live visuals from Rivers State. This would be where materials would have been leaving to go to the various parts of the state. One of the challenges that I've always had, Jeffrey, about local government elections is the quantum of awareness that we create, or a lack of it. I'm very glad something you said now about the fact that whoever controls the local government in Rivers State controls the state. Now that is, in my opinion, that's a very, very good thing. Here is why. Tell me one state in Nigeria that has a very, very active local government system. One.
But I don't want to speak for any state or against them. They know themselves.
Exactly.
They know themselves.
But the point that I'm making is, for you to say this, it means, and with this new position of the federal government about the local government administration, the autonomy of the local government administrations, financially and administratively, it's something good.
Yes.
So with these materials now going all over the place now, the question I keep asking Jeffrey is, how much information, awareness have we created for the people to own this process?
Two things are very common with local government election. Turnout is always very low, and that cascades from how the people perceive governance. And two reasons for that. Sometimes they feel that, for heaven's sake, you know, the election is already predetermined, so why should I come out? In understanding politics, one of the easiest elections to predict is local government election. It's the easiest to predict outcome, and we all know why. So on one hand, people feel that no matter what I go and do, which is not a good mindset, but I cannot also dismiss that mindset. They have a valid reason, but you also know that you don't need to stay away. Go out and cast your vote.
You know, I always say this thing, Jeffrey, and especially now that the materials are going out to the various places.
Yeah, from RSIEC headquarters to the 23 local government areas.
I want to appeal, and I would like you to do that as well, particularly as what we call here the son of the soil. You know, that our people would go out and vote. Look, cause the what's that thing now? Cause the uproar. Cause the no. When I say uproar, I'm not talking about.
Don't cause violence. I don't think that's what you mean.
Just cause a distortion in the system. Let it not be predictable. Okay, well, maybe we should ask Deborah. Jeffrey, let's go ahead and ask Deborah if there was any significant awareness created, you know, for the people.
All right, Deborah Balama is our correspondent in Port Harcourt. So you see vehicles moving across different parts of this, going to different parts of the state. River State has about 23 local government areas, both on the upland, what we call the upland, and the riverine areas. So this is moving across those parts where these elections will hold. Deborah Balama, we can see you, and I hope you can hear us loud and clear. Deborah, tell us, just help us feel the pulse of the city. I guess you're in Port Harcourt, somewhere around our bar road. Maybe you pause it to us where you are and what exactly is played out behind the scene as we see.
It's indeed the very big day that we've all been waiting for in River State. I think a lot of us anticipated for today, the 30th of August, when eventually the local government election is taking place. And well, it's been a beehive in RSIEC since Wednesday of this week. From Thursday, non-sensitive material started moving to the various local government areas. I understand that from my discussions with the RSIEC chairman yesterday evening, he actually said some of the sensitive materials left for the farther local governments like Borne, Opobo, areas that are very far away from Port Harcourt. And this morning, the sensitive materials that are leaving are for the local governments that are around the metropolis, that are not too far off from the metropolis, from the headquarters of RSIEC. And he was in high spirits yesterday, the RSIEC chairman. He actually said that he is quite sure that the election will go smoothly, that from what he's done from his end, ad hoc staffs were trained, they trained their staff very well. Everybody is just geared up, waiting for today, and he believes that the election will go smoothly. We're going to go from here to see whether the materials are getting to the various points in the local governments where they are supposed to have their collations, you know. So, but from RSIEC, everything is in order. Security is top-notch. River State has waited for today. A lot of residents are anticipating that today will go smoothly, and they can only hope for that. If you look around Port Harcourt today, the compliance is 100%. There was curfew declared from 12 midnight of this morning, 12 a.m. of this morning, and it's going to last till 6 p.m. And the road is a ghost town right now. Everywhere is quiet, and there's total compliance. And we're going to know eventually if Rivers people are going to turn out en masse to vote today. But from the discussions I had with them, some of them are enthusiastic about today, some are not, and they have their reasons not to be. There's been quite a roller coaster for River State. You're aware that, of course, on 5th of October 2024, we had the first local government elections where 23 local government chairmen and councillors emerged. And from there, They were sworn in. Thereafter, after about 3 months in office, the courts started, and eventually they lost at the Supreme Court, and that was dissolved. The election was nullified. And well, we went back again to sole administratorship in Rivers State local governments after the sole administrator in the state was brought in due to the state of emergency declared, and the state governor as well as his deputy and the House of Assembly members were removed. We had the sole administrators running the local government now for about approximately, call it 3 months. There was an election fixed, first of all, by the previous chairman, the immediate past chairman of RSIEC, and that election was originally fixed for August 9. However, after the sole administrator came in, it became necessary, according to them, to bring in another team to lead this election. And so they brought in Dr. Michael Ode, who took over. As soon as he took over, barely like around towards the ending of July, he was sworn in. And after that, there was a meeting, he converged. And then right there we were told elections are no longer for August 9. It will now hold on August 30. And well, there were questions like they required 3 months stipulated by the election umpire, INEC, according to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, that elections should at least have 3 months to prepare campaigns and all what needs to be done. However, the reason the chairman gave that they will not wait for that long is because, of course, the sole administrators in the local government have been there for too long, and going by the local government autonomy, they cannot allow people who are not elected continue to stay in the local government. Well, the sole administrator is sure that he is only here for a transition, according to his speeches. He is here to ensure that peace returns to Rivers State and ensure a smooth process to that. And this election, according to them, is part of that process to the peace in Rivers State. So here we are today. They say their mechanism are all in ground. There was a joint press conference, a briefing between the police and the RSIEC authority, and they did give us quite a lot. They are sure that security is top-notch. If you would take the camera just to the right a bit, you will see the armory vehicles are all here, tight security everywhere. I can say that the security people are on ground, so you know the police were not just talking when they said the security today will be top-notch. But the CP actually said something on Thursday that was quite important to note. He said there is a state of emergency in the state. So he actually, in his words, that the sole administrator could decide to be stiffer with measures if anybody is found trying to distort the election in any way. And I asked him further, I engaged him and I asked him, can you explain what you mean by further? He said, well, for instance, someone has the right to bail at least within 48 hours of arrest, you know, or else you're being charged to court. However, if somebody is arrested, the sole administrator looking at your offense can decide, he has the power under the state of emergency to bend the rule a bit and say, well, you're not going to be released after 48 hours. You will stay longer until collation is done. Everything about this election is concluded. The chairman are sworn in before you can be released. That the sole administrator has such authority. This is in the words of CP Adepoju.
All right, Deborah Balama, giving us updates as to some of the things that we should be expecting. We'll get back to her, Ayo, as soon as we can. Just giving us what you've gotten from the
It's like you both had a meeting before this program.
Oh,
so it was it kind of, you stopped and then she just took it up from there. That's fine, especially because she's more on ground, you know. But the question that I would still want to ask her, which we'll probably ask our next guest now, is the level of awareness. All of the politicking is just politics, Jeffrey. We can agree that at the end of the day, all these efforts we are making is for the people. So are the people aware? How many people are we expecting to come out today? You know, how many radio stations were engaged by maybe RSIEC, for instance, about this whole thing? So let's see if we have already the chairman of the River State Independent Electoral Commission, Mr. Michael Ode, to have a conversation with us this morning. Good morning, and thank you for joining us, sir.
Democracy, the government of the people, by the people, for the people. And if we want the government by us, for us, then we must have a way of also having a say in the people that are chosen to rule us. Registration is the first stage. The second stage is to collect the PVC. If you register without collecting the PVC, it's as good as not registering, because you will not be entitled to vote. So registration and collecting the PVC is very, very essential. Please, the issue of saying I want to register for my sister or for my mother or for my father does not come into play. And you agree with me, the commission has set up these things so that even if it is sick now, we are going to be here until probably next year, around August next year, so that everybody is given the opportunity to come and register.
It's quite limited across the state, just to show the level of compliance. If you don't have any business, maybe as a journalist, as a policeman, or maybe health worker, and every other essential service beyond the election, you wouldn't have any business being on the street. You have to be around your polling unit as well. You know, Deborah was making some statement, and I was just smiling. It's funny, and I'm happy we're going to have a lawyer to intervene in some of the legalese around this.
When I hear state of emergency, it's like martial law, so to speak. So the only good thing about this is that I am not seeing military officials all over the place, and that's a good thing. Because back then, when you declared a state of emergency, oh my God. It's like a state of war declared.
No, the Gen Zs won't understand that. They are used to democracy. Some of us millennials and beyond know that when you hear such things, it's very nerve-breaking.
Perhaps one of the challenges we've had, and as you said, I'm really glad we're talking about this. I don't know how much we've changed things without really changing the people before we change that thing. It's like this whole, what they call this whole change management scenario, where you move us from military government to civilian government, but there was no real preparation of the people. We know what the right thing to do is. We know what the standard is. The democracy, this Fourth Republic, Jeffrey, the campaign for it, the uproar for it, the agitation for it took what? 6 years?
Yeah, slightly less than that. Around
1993 to
6 years, sir.
To 1999.
98, 99.
99, exactly. So it took that length of time. But guess what? All we did was agitate. We didn't quite prepare the people for this whole process. So hearing the things that Deborah is saying about the power that a sole administrator has, were you aware of that in the first place?
Well, in an emergency, thank God we have a lawyer that will be able to intervene in some of these legalese. But when it's an extraordinary situation, extraordinary measures are taken. But of course, she's talking with reference to issues around violence. And to that extent, perhaps, you know, all of that could be in line. But I don't expect anybody to cause any trouble. But, you know, you can never predict. Elections are quite a scenario. You know, one of the things that was making me to laugh is to the effect that, but just to establish with our audience, so let's tell you what we're saying before we continue with our conversation. Is materials moving from RSIEC? RSIEC is the River State Independent Electoral Commission. The headquarters is somewhere around Aba Road in Port Harcourt City, somewhere around Port Harcourt City, Obiakpo, because some parts where you call Port Harcourt is actually Obiakpo local government area.
How is it different?
Yeah, anyway.
Anyone in Port Harcourt, anyone in Rivers State, you've never been there. Once you get there, you are in Port Harcourt.
That's what I'm trying to educate.
Once you get there, you are in Port Harcourt.
So everywhere you hear the name Rumo, anything is not Port Harcourt.
Oh, really?
Anything Rumo. It's like Akwa Ibom, they have Ikot people. Okay. So Rumo. So Rumo anything. Rumo Ola, Rumo Ogba, Rumo Lumini. There are so many Rumos. The people of that area, when you hear those places, they are mostly Obiakpo. Obiakpo is actually, I think, bigger than Port Harcourt. Oh. So if you have from places like Rumola down all the way to town to some GRA areas and down to, Borokri. In fact, when you're going towards that end, you're even interfacing around Abloma, you're maybe entering another side altogether. So it's
Today is Jeffrey's program. I promise you.
No, it's not.
Only because
it's just
I can see that. I mean,
no, I'm just explaining.
You're right now walking the streets.
I grew up there, so you can see. So this is Aba Road, where the resident River City Independent Electoral Commission office is.
Secretariat is.
I think it's somewhere around close to INEC office as well. Okay. I think so. They are almost. It's been a while, so almost around the same area, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah, there's a lot to unpack this morning, and we will be on this coverage for the length of time until sometime midday or thereabout. Go in and out of a number of other conversations, but here, we'll keep this on. These are live pictures from Port Harcourt, from Rivers State. Now that you have said that there's a place that's bigger than Port Harcourt, let me be educated. But there are a number of legal issues to deal with, along with other matters that we'll be bringing to you. Let's begin this morning with a conversation with Mr. Wahab Shitu, a senior advocate of Nigeria. He's right here in the studio with us. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Dr. Wahab Shitu.
Dr. Wahab Shitu, that's on me. I apologize. Good morning, and thank you for being here.
Good morning, Nigerians.
A number of issues, first of all. I will come to one question that I know that Jeffrey wants to ask you, but the first thing that I would like to ask you, this election is supposedly about the people. How prepared do you think people are? One of the concerns that's known to us, and Jeffrey has raised this morning, is that, and it's a troubling issue for INEC as well, because we've asked them before, that's the fact that in the category of elections, patronage by the people, the local government elections comes at the basest, lowest. In other words, it's the one that the people patronize the least in the country. Sometimes maybe like 10, 15, tops 20% of voters come out for local government elections. But this time, we are giving all the attention to it. How much awareness do you think, from what you can see, was given to this election in Rivers State?
Thank you very much. I think if the attention being given to this election, the local government election, is not the required attention that ought to be given, there should be a matter for concern, because of all the categories of elections that we have, as the impact on the people, the one that is most important and most fundamental is the local government election. Because that is where the grassroots people live. That is the election that determines the quality of primary health care, the quality of education, and other indices or the indicators of development. So that level of awareness ought to be high, supposedly, because democracy and the conduct of election is supposed to be about dividends to the people.
But do you think it is anything high?
it is not as high as would ordinarily be expected. And there are a lot of factors for this. Voters' apathy and lack of sufficient political education. And this ought to be the primary responsibility of INEC and then the various electoral bodies, apart from the role that political parties themselves have to play in sensitizing the people, in sustaining the level of awareness that will make people interested. I think generally the conduct of election, not just look at government election, is heavily challenged by this apathy. And it's a major issue. It's not something that can be trivialized. Democracy is supposed to be government of the people, by the people, and for the people. The people are supposed to take ownership of the process. They are supposed to be, so when people now lay back, or when they show lack of sufficient interest in the process, and I think that calls for a lot of concern. It means that all the agencies, in charge of the management and conduct of our elections, or in charge of the management and conduct of our democratic structures and institutions, ought to now know that that is a vote of no confidence in them, and they should buckle in order to be able to change the narrative.
Okay.
Because if the people who are supposed to be interested, eager to come out, to come and vote, are drawing back, then we should find out why this is so. What are the things that we need to do that we are not doing? Or what more can be done in order to be, because it's an anomaly. It's something that ought not to be the norm. People should be eager to come out, to come and vote for candidates of their choice, because the power they have lies in the ballot box, ballot paper. That is the power they have to be able to elect representatives of their choices, to be able to even vote out people they don't like, or they don't want them to, because the election is about the will of the people. So I think a lot still needs to be done by everyone, particularly the electoral bodies, in sensitizing the people. And then governance too. It's about service delivery quality. Governance at all levels, whether at the federal, state, local government level, it's about service to the people. People must be able to see the impact of governance. If you ask people to come out to vote, then you interrogate the question, what has happened to previous efforts? Deployed by the people coming out to vote. Are they seeing the results of the previous, sacrifices they have made?
You just took the words of Tamino right here,
Yes.
who is already reaching us already on X, saying, Election day, Rivers State, boys must be on the road playing football. I don't blame them. When people begin to see the benefits of voting, they will take our elections seriously.
Yes.
This looks like a lockdown city. Well, you can also contribute to this conversation this morning. Just mention, make your contribution and just mention Channels TV, at Channels TV on X. We'll be able to take some of your comments as well. So it's like
it is not when elections are about to take place that political office holders and even political parties suddenly will realize that the people matter.
Okay, sure.
You understand me? It is not what during elections.
There's a question agitating the mind of...
the senior advocate is a familiar territory for him, all of this. So one of the things that I want you to speak to, which is even of an additional concern. So in Section 9 of the Electoral Act, which is what brings a relationship between INEC and RSIEC, or INEC and the state electoral commissions, which is basically saying INEC is the one empowered to maintain register of political parties, do CVR and all of that. That's why, at the end of the day, the state independent electoral commission always refer to INEC to get the register of the election of the voters to be able to conduct elections. So, Senior Advocate, one of the questions or concerns raised by the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, was to the effect that, look, he was speaking to the chairman of the State Independent Electoral Commission in one of his meetings, and he said to them, look, as a matter of fact, what you're doing in your state affects us as INEC. Of course, you know, INEC has its own battle in terms of crisis of confidence, just like every other institution. The way you conduct yourself affects us. Yes, we give you the register, we do our part, but the way you conduct yourself, and it's anyone citing even River State, where the notice of election is clearly in violation, because he was talking about the duration of time. He said, when you give people 30 days or 21 days or whatever it is you're giving them, when do you want them to start doing primaries, to start campaigning, mobilize the people? So he was saying, like, almost saying unconstitutionality in that sense. What do you make of it when we're seeing this kind of scenario? Because in addition to bad governance, as it is said, these issues around timing, notices, is also a big issue, even in the Lagos State election.
I agree with you. The answer lies in our understanding of what democracy is all about. Democracy and the conduct of elections, including all of these issues that you have raised, ought to be premised on respect for the rule of law. There's no way you can have a democracy that is self-sustaining without respect for the rule of law. So if you have rules in place, you must respect those rules. You have provisions in place for the conduct of the election, then you must respect those provisions. And then you must also ensure, and this is for legislators, those who are in charge of making our laws, that you provide as much as possible for situations that will arise that will derogate from the rules. You understand me? You should have,
maybe remember like a caveat?
Yes. That is why election into our various, legislative bodies ought to primarily also depend on the quality of people we put there in terms of, and we are not saying just lawyers, but seasoned professionals who understand what the legal provisions are. You don't vote in people who cannot even appreciate what legal provisions and their responsibilities are in governance. I think primarily some of these problems arise because of the silence, relative silence, in most of the provisions regulating the conduct of our elections. They do not provide for certain situations that would then arise. That is why legislation must be a detailed process, a very exhaustive process, where you look at all kinds of scenarios that could arise and then make provisions for them before those things are contemplated. Again, we must also learn the culture of asking our courts to interpret quickly some of our provisions, and that is likely the function of state attorney generals and even the attorney general of the federation. There is this jurisdiction that is rarely exercised, the jurisdiction to determine constitutional questions. That's a very very powerful jurisdiction available to state attorney generals and even the federal attorney general, including concerned constitutional lawyers. You recall that there was a lot of activism or public interest litigations in those days, and I think those things have to be. We need to begin to, engage that process. A lot of our provisions are not yet tested in the law court. There's a lot of ambiguity as to interpretation. You will interpret it differently. He will interpret it differently. I will interpret, and looking at the way the legislation is drafted, you cannot say any of this interpretation is wrong. But it could be wrong. The only body that can then say this is the one that is acceptable, this is the one that satisfies the intention of the draftsman is the court.
And sometimes I find that a little comical because sometimes you just wonder, hey, this thing is written in black and white and it's in plain nursery school English. Yet some people are still going to interpret it.
No, because there are various rules of interpretation of a statute. We have the literary rule of interpretation, interpreting a statute, in which case you just rely on the ordinary grammatical meaning. Of course, there's the golden rule of interpretation, which goes beyond the literary meaning. And then there's also the mischief rule. You look at the purpose for which the legislation was designed, and what it was intended to achieve in your interpretation. Of course, there's also in constitutional law, there's the purposive interpretation of constitutional provision. You look at the purpose that law is designed to achieve, and then you use that as the vehicle for interpreting it. You understand me? So that's what lawyers are. We're lawyers. We are wired in the.
Are lawyers part of the problem?
No, I think that's the ingenuity of the lawyer. The lawyer deploys advocacy, deploys legal reasoning, deploys a lot of jurisprudence in carrying out his job. That's why lawyers who advocate will argue, and then it is for the judge, the judice, to then say, oh, out of all these arguments, this is the law.
Well, maybe one good thing that might come from what you're saying, Dr. Shitu, is maybe more lawyers should go to the National Assembly and state houses of assembly.
Not just lawyers.
Maybe we'll have peace. We'll come back to that some other time.
Not just lawyers. Let me correct that impression.
Okay. No, I'm just saying.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
More lawyers, yes, but more seasoned professionals. Let me tell you, the governance is not for the law-making process.
It's the understanding that you spoke about.
The understanding, for instance, if you look at the training of the accountant, for instance, very rigorous.
Exactly. Okay, but there is this
training of even the journalist.
There's this question that I think might be giving the election in Rivers State this morning some a little more attention than normal. I don't remember the last time, maybe in a while, that we've had local government elections in a state that is run by a sole administrator under a state of emergency. Now, that gives this particular case some uniqueness. Don't you think so?
Yeah, it is. You see, we must be careful. Certain questions are being submitted for adjudication before a court of competent jurisdiction. And let me sound a note of warning. When questions have been submitted for determination before a court of competent jurisdiction, in a forum like this, we cannot begin to interrogate such questions until a pronouncement is made. One way or the other by the court. If we do that, that would be judicial. I mean, that would be
not judicial.
That would be
the peculiarity of
no,
this.
I'm just saying this note of warning.
Okay.
And not only for this purpose.
Doctor.
I'm warning myself.
Yeah.
I'm warning you.
No, doctor.
I'm also warning everybody out there who might be tempted to fall into this grave.
The warning
I've read what's going on in the River State.
Yes.
Extensively.
Yes, doctor.
Yes.
Doctor, we'll come back to it. In fact, we'll speak to it based on a judgment, not on what is in the court.
Okay.
On a judgment.
Okay.
So that we can speak to.
Okay.
But let's get to River State and speak with the chairman of the River State Independent Electoral Commission, Mr. Michael Ode, joins us. Mr. Ode, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Good morning.
Good morning, Zusa. I know you have a busy day, and thank you for taking our time to just come and give us heads up. So let's begin with the very basic of level of preparations as far as the elections are concerned. We saw your, I think, the presser yesterday talking about citizens should come out to vote and all of that. But just give us an overview of what you're dealing with today.
The issuance of the notice of election and the release of the election timetable as revised, and after that we started engaging with our stakeholders. We met with the security agencies, we started our procurement processes, we started the recruitment of ad hoc staff, we did training, we engaged with civil society organizations, we did town hall meetings, we did road shows, we had ISS meetings, and we also had a ceremony where political parties signed an undertaking to be of good conduct during the elections. And all those processes have culminated today where we are to do the implementation as was planned.
I have for you is a question that I've been asking and earlier, and that is, what would you say is the level of preparedness, particularly in terms of voter awareness? Elections, local government elections are usually not so much given attention by the people. As a matter of fact,
if you had been listening to radios, we actually saturated the airwaves. We made sure that our public affairs department was fully engaged. We reached out to other stations, and from time to time we made sure that the public was kept abreast of our processes and procedures, and we hope that that will resonate today with the outcome.
But engagement, it's one thing to give out information, it's another thing to confirm or affirm whether or not the people are resonating with the information you are putting out. Do you have any response whatsoever as to how the people are likely to respond today?
Well, I'm not a clairvoyant, but I believe that with our interactions with them, particularly the political parties, the traditional rulers, for instance, also called out people to make sure they key into the processes and be peaceful during this exercise. And yes, you may not have 100% acceptance in terms of voter participation, but relatively, I think the voter turnout will be encouraging, hopefully, today.
Mr. Oda, so we're going to wind down with you because we know you have a busy day. I know that your appointment was a very tumultuous process, given that you're not from River State. But that's not the conversation for today. We're going to have that conversation later. But where I'm going to is the time you were appointed, now that you're conducting election, quite a very short period. I remember your meeting, CIEC meeting with the INEC chairman. If you listen to what we're saying, it has raised a concern about the shortness of time and even the constitutionality of the notice of election. How are you working around these landmines?
I didn't have any, I was not part of that meeting, so I won't comment on that.
Okay, so now that you had a very short period to prepare, don't you think it's going to affect the turnout of the level of participation of the people, given the shortness of time to quickly rush through the entire process?
Well, I don't call it a rush as such. We reached out to the voting population, and we did all we can from our own end. What else could we have done is to saturate the airwaves, to engage the stakeholders, and the message of participation, peaceful participation for that matter, was spread across the 23 local government areas. So I'm confident that the process is going to be seamless today.
Now, one of the things that's been concerning for a bit, Mr. Ode, is that sometimes electoral materials do not get to riverine areas in good enough time. Is there any plan that you've made differently this time around to ensure that there is no delay to when they receive the materials, far and near, in River State?
Okay. You know, this time around there is a different paradigm. We made sure that 2 weeks to the elections, we had a memorandum of understanding with the National Union of Maritime Workers, and we have already paid for the boats, about 300 of them, and they have been distributed to the 12 river and local government in River State. And as I'm speaking to you, they've been activated since morning, and that we expect, having done that, that the punctuality index in terms of beginning of poll and closing will be considerably high this time around.
So, Ms. Ode, so begin to wind down with you. What are you doing? Are you concerned about the two things when it comes to local government election? One is the level of voter apathy, perhaps people, and then the issue of perception of predetermined outcome. How are you managing that?
Well, voter apathy, like I told you, I have not a Nostradamus to be able to know what will happen, but we have been committed to this process. Our preparation has been steady. Our commitment is firm. Our destination is very clear: to midwife an electoral process that River State people will own, an electoral process that they can trust, an electoral process that they can defend anywhere, any day. Your second question is to the outcome. You know, local government elections generally in this country, the perception is that the government in power, the political party in power, is the one that holds sway. But I want to remark that, you know, opposition parties go into elections, particularly at the grassroots local government elections, with a defeatist, you know, approach. You know, for them, one, they claim they don't have resources, and you hardly even see them campaigning. And so that is why maybe the success index for political parties in power, it's at times questionable. But if you look at the dynamics, you will understand that when somebody wants to go into a context and is already feeling defeated, the outcome will be as predicted.
You know, you won't blame the people. The trend has shown that significantly. For us who watch this space, it's very easy to predict a local government election. If I do a bet, I can win literally all of them because of how we found ourselves. But what is more important for you, who is a neutral umpire, is to provide a level playing field for a credible election. So what are you doing to make sure that there's confidence in RSIEC? Ability to conduct this election fairly, transparently, and credibly?
Yeah, I think, you know, to show an integrity in the process, your actions or inactions will have that perception. And so, but if we are inclusive, if you are you know, carrying along the major stakeholders along all the processes in the value chain, there is a tendency that they will own it, they will key into it, and there is a probability too that since they are part of the process, they will also accept the outcome. From our side, we've been very transparent. We've not been opaque. It is when you do things, you know, without letting people know that you create suspicion, you're bound to be, you know, fake news, misinformation, and at times it could even lead to protest if you are not open. I can assure you that we've been considerably transparent, and there's nothing to hide about our process.
So, Mr. Ode, just before we let you go, I'd like you to give us some quick answers. It's 8:49 now. First of all, how many parties are conducting this election, are participating in this election?
We have 17 political parties participating in this election. They also, to indicate that they collected their expression of interest forms and went through the necessary process of screening. Okay. So we have 17 political parties taking part in this local government elections.
Okay. It's exactly 10 minutes to 9. From information available to you, how many local governments are yet to get whatever materials they need to get so that the elections can begin?
No. All have received election materials. Election materials, we started on Thursday with non-sensitive materials. As at yesterday, all the sensitive materials had been received by the electoral officers in their LGAs. Remember, we have 6 commissioners. And so each commissioner is assigned about 3 LGAs or so. So yesterday, they went with sensitive materials accompanied by security agents and delivered physically to the electoral officers at the LGA levels.
So can we confirm right now that all elections are supposed to start when they are supposed to start? Tell us, what time are elections supposed to start in Rivers State today?
Election is supposed to start at 8:30, and by now I can assure you that a considerable number of local governments, more than 80%, have commenced the beginning of poll.
All right, well, thank you so much, Mr. Michael Ode, the chairman of the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission, for coming in. Despite your busy day, we'll check in on you as we progress with the exercise.
It's always my pleasure.
Thank you.
It's always my pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, so let's get back here and talk to our guest, Wahab Shitu, Dr. Wahab Shitu, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. I'm sure you've heard the chairman speak about these things, and I didn't want to drag him into the legalese because today is not the day for all of that. Let him do what he has to do as far as his election is concerned. I know you have talked about the issues around prejudices and all of that. I understand that, but there's a judgment that we can rely on that looks like, for me, a locus classicus as far as local government election is concerned. In this same Rivers State, when the election was conducted last year, October, and nullified by the Supreme Court, Justice Yamama was the one that read the lead judgment, and the premise for nullifying that election resides in Section 150 of the Electoral Act, Section 151 and 3, which simply talked about the fact that, however elections are conducted in the FCT, it should have equal force with the way it's conducted in the states. And subsection 3 says that if it is not done the way it is done in the FCT, that election should be nullified. And that premise he quoted in his judgment that we all have and decided this election. So if you look at notice of election and several other issues, we may be having a problem. That's what I'm saying, based on a judgment, not what is being applied in the court, which is perhaps the reason why they went to court.
You have referenced a Supreme Court judgment.
In the same Rivers State.
In the same Rivers State. Until that judgment is set aside by the same Supreme Court, it remains the law. On that point, the Supreme Court is the highest court in the land. And so when the Supreme Court has made a pronouncement on an issue, first of all, it is unethical to relitigate the same issue in an inferior court to the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court has made that pronouncement on that subject matter. If you are aggrieved with what the Supreme Court has said on that matter and you want to raise the issue again, or you can then go back to the Supreme Court and ask the Supreme Court to set aside its own judgment, which is a jurisdiction that is rarely exercised. So, but for you to, if there's a clear-cut pronouncement by the Supreme Court on any subject, you now go before a lower court to relitigate that same issue. That is a fundamental breach of ethical standards, or ethics, by counsel who's involved in that kind of exercise. It may be excusable if you go to the Supreme Court to say, oh, take a second look at this. There are new developments. We have had situations, rare situations, where the Supreme Court will set aside its own judgment. But it's something that is, once the Supreme Court has made a pronouncement.
Senior Advocate, the reason I was going to ask this next question, the reason why I raised that particular issue, because we see a lot of politicians do things, and you're wondering exactly what is going on. Yes. So, for instance, the issue of local government autonomy has always been there. For the section of the Constitution, Section 7, clearly says that the state should guarantee democratically elected governance at the local government level. It's been there in our Constitution as long as this Constitution has been. But governors and state government have found a way to defy the Constitution, that in their own law, within the local government administration, they provide for caretaker and transition committee, an affront on the Constitution, until this Attorney General came and said, that has to stop. And the Supreme Court agreed with him, which is why all of a sudden, everybody now knows that local government election has to hold.
Yes.
So what do you make of these political breaches into our laws?
Well, it's something that should...
Not necessarily about this, for instance.
It's something that should be a cause for concern. In the democracies, that will be an anomaly. I've said it before, that our democracy is supposed to be a democracy by the rule of law. What that means is that you cannot have a democracy, properly so-called, if you don't have respect for the rule of law, if you don't have respect for constitutionalism. What does that mean? It means that you must allow that democracy to be governed by the spirit and letters of the Constitution. So if the Constitution has made specific provisions on any area, you must respect it. Respect for the rule of law, respect for the constitutionalism, respect for the rule of law, respect for due process ought to define our democracy. You understand me? So it's not the whims of political elites that determines the direction of our democracy. It's the spirit and letters of the law that ought to determine. So when you see the scenarios you have just referred to playing out, we are not subscribing to the spirit and letters of democratic standards. And that should be a cause of worry. So I think the takeaway from this conversation ought to be that, are we ready for democracy? And if we are ready for democracy, then we should allow our democracy to be governed by the respect for the rule of law.
You know, one of the...
respect for constitutionalism. So you cannot begin to do things outside the spirit and letters of the Constitution and say you are a Democrat. So you cannot even have a democracy without you yourself being ready to be a Democrat. And how do you subscribe to say that, oh, I want to be a Democrat? Then you must respect the Constitution.
Well,
you must respect the rule of law. And that is basic.
Okay.
Anything we are doing outside that is descent to the jungle.
Jeffrey said something earlier that he can predict the outcome of this election. I guess we're going to have to say he's looking to the VAR for today. And he has said, okay, this is what is likely. Mr. Kunle Lawal joins us right now via Zoom. He's Executive Director of Electoral College, Nigeria. Good morning, Mr. Lawal, and thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
All right. Naturally, the question I want to ask you is what you think the level of our preparation is. You've listened to the chairman of the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission, Mr. Michael Ode. You heard a number of things that he said, I hope, and how persuaded are you about the level of our preparedness for these local government elections?
First and foremost, we'll start with Rivers State as its entirety. Now, Rivers is under an emergency rule prepared by the President. And Section 305 clearly states that democratic structures are suspended indefinitely in cases where it is reported Plateau, Adamawa, and Plateau and Adamawa, I remember clearly, local government elections were not held. Because it was preempting or preceding or during an emergency rule, so it's a democratic structure that put in place. Now, Rivers State in focus. Rivers State usually has one of the most volatile LG elections in Nigeria. Now with the sole administrator and the RSIEC, that's State Electoral Commissioner, being appointed by the sole administrator, who apparently isn't from Rivers State. There's a little conversation around the practicality of this local government election, that's within political parties and within Rivers State indigenous. And these conversations have led to quite a mistrust. So we naturally have less than 6.5% of voting population participation in local government elections in Rivers State. Now the projection is, with all these quagmires surrounding the present situation, we're looking at probably lower turnouts. I don't know, my prediction is between 4.5 and 5% participation.
That's not a good, that's not the kind of statistic you want to expect. I'm pretty sure that is not, you wish it was more, but historically, what you just said now about the stats of the number of people that are likely to come out is the fact. But, and you probably heard Dr. Shitu also speak to that, and as to what could be responsible for that. From your own prism, what do you think could be the reason? Obvious or not so obvious?
Well, I would like to start with first the suspension of the democratic structures in our rivers. That would be a big issue with what's going on and would affect participation. With that suspension, other political parties participating in these elections would assume they too could be suspended at will on the premise of the president or the sole administrator. And therein lies your quagmire. And then you have a lot of people not wanting to come out because they do not believe in the system again. We already have a problem with people believing in the system in Nigeria generally. And then now you have this issue with Rivers State, which is now a whole new ballgame. And, you know, it begs the question, like he said, like the speaker in the studio said, we must have the rule of law if we want to practice a democracy. We can't use the rule of law when we feel like or when we think it is suitable. Now, this of course will affect participation generally. The poor political party participation in local governments is not only with Rivers State. I think because of state control of local government elections is a ruling party leads belief. So nobody else wants to participate. We saw that quagmire with the Lagos elections, in which all the parties that were even participating were not mentioned in a lot of polling units in Lagos. And I think we're going to see the same in Rivers State. I think I've never for one supported states because of the power of executive governors, or in this case, sole administrators. I've never supported states conducting LG elections, right? I think the power vested in them is too much. And since they are being appointed by sole administrator or governor, their influence on the elections is too massive to call it democratic.
Well, just let me get this straight so that you know, Dr. Shitu can respond to it. Are you saying that because we're under an emergency rule in Rivers State, and since, according to you, all democratic infrastructure are on hold, are you saying that the local government elections shouldn't be holding because of that?
Well, if you look at the laws of Nigeria, yeah, the Electoral Act is silent on it, but the Section 305 of the Constitution, the same section which was used to suspend the elected governor, clearly states that democratic structures are suspended. There's a lacuna because it doesn't mention local government elections, but it clearly states democratic structures are suspended. And you cannot, I don't see the democracy in something that was appointed creating an elected. The elected is always, it's supposed to precede the appointed. So an appointed can't create an elected, in the simplest terms to put it.
That's an interesting perspective. Dr. Shitu, how do you respond to that?
Well, I've heard repeatedly the expression democratic structures are lately suspended if there's a declaration of emergency.
According to the Constitution.
I've scanned through the Constitution.
Okay.
I've not seen such provision that all democratic structures will be suspended if there's a declaration of a state of emergency. I've just glanced through Section 305. We have under Section 305 about
four provisions.
About six.
Yes, about that.
Yes. There's nowhere it is stated that all democratic structures will be suspended, you will recognize the fact that the local government democratic structure is specifically provided for under Section 7 of the Constitution, and that the system of democratically elected local government council is hereby guaranteed. There's no way under Section 305 where that provision is dislodged. Or he said that because when there's a state of emergency, then the local government structure will also terminate. There's no such. I don't want to go into other arguments on this issue, because if you see the suit that is pending before the Rivers State High Court, the live issue there, which is yet to be resolved, to which even proceedings have been adjourned, is to determine whether the Constitution, the nomination, the Constitution, and then the presentation of the Rivers State Electoral Commission Board is constitutional against the background of Section 176, subsection 1 and 2, and Section 197, subsection 1 and 3 of the Constitution. We shouldn't comment on that because it's an issue that is pending before a court of competent jurisdiction. Proceedings have been adjourned to determine that issue. When a pronouncement is made by the court, one way or the other, we can then come and interrogate that pronouncement. But now that that issue is a live issue before the High Court, we should not sit in judgment before that pronouncement is made.
I asked a similar question earlier, and that's when you were telling us, trying to warn us, warn yourself, as you said the other time. But I'm coming somewhere. I'm coming somewhere. Because, if you also heard what Mr. Lawal said,
yes,
there are a number of things that may not allow people to come out, that may continue to give the people this impression. For instance, and the question that I asked earlier was that this dynamic is unique in that an emergency rule is in force in Rivers State and a local government election is being conducted. That is a fact. It's not something about it. So I'm just asking, how significantly do you think that will affect the outcome or the disposition of the people? That's all.
Well, that also may affect. To deny that what is going on in Rivers State is something that is not ordinary. In a democracy, you expect all officials that will participate in the process to be elected, except those who are appointed after the designated officials are elected. You understand me? For instance, the president appoints ministers and all that who are not elected. The governor appoints commissioners who are not elected. But that authority derives from elected representatives. So what is going on? When you have a state of emergency, the state is an abnormal situation. It's an emergency situation. It doesn't mean that in an emergency situation, law is silent. Because even the administrator who is appointed to come and preside over that emergency situation in the case of Rivers State has a duty to deliver on law and order. And if you look at it from that perspective, delivering on law and order also includes ensuring that where appropriate, elections are to be conducted. Yeah, it should be conducted. You understand me? Because as my own interpretation, I want to just keep silent because I don't want to comment on the suit that is in court now presently, because it's sub judice. So we don't want to comment on that. But to say that because a state of emergency is declared, then the law is silent. It's not, it doesn't make sense. Even in a state of war, under international law is never silent. There are rules regulating even the conduct of war. You understand me? When there's conduct of war and for instance, you are not supposed to bomb civilian targets during a state of war. You are also supposed to recognize the rights of women and those who are vulnerable. You are not supposed to also deploy, military arsenal to destroy certain specific targets during the war. There are laws of war. So even even when law is raging, the law is not silent. Law is always active. Law is always active, whether we're in a state of peace or in a state of war.
Just to build on that,
yes.
Are we allowing political apprehension to get us into a conundrum that we're now trying to run, we don't even know where we're racing to? Because literally everything from the beginning, the challenge of the president's powers, ultra bias, as alleged, now a case before the Supreme Court, which I know you will not like to speak to, because the last time we went to the Supreme Court, their justices looked for a way to, it wasn't adjudicated on, because the man who brought in the case, Joshua Daria, he doesn't have the local standard because he was already suspended. And then appointment of a sole administrator, and then him appointing several other persons. But there's a future landmine here, that even if you look at the local government law in Rivers State, and I'm sure in every other state, the chairmen are being sworn in by the governor at the council chambers. So what are we doing? What are we really getting at? Because at the end of the day, is this sole administrator that will swear in the elected chairman that will be elected today. And that in itself is a constitutional issue.
Thank you. Who is a governor? Who is a sole administrator? A governor presides over the affairs of the state. And that role, that function is being exercised by the sole administrator. Remember that the Rivers State as it is now is a peculiarity. You understand me? The Constitution makes provisions for its declaration of a state of emergency under Section 305. I didn't make that provision. You didn't make it. The draftsman made it there. So it's not that the sole administrator suddenly emerged or a state of emergency is suddenly declared outside the Constitution.
No, the Constitution provides for state of emergency.
Yes.
The Constitution did not provide for a sole administrator.
When you say a state of emergency, you are saying that there will be the exercise of extraordinary powers. The word extraordinary powers is so very extensive. The president has the power to declare a state of emergency anywhere.
Correct.
And then if he declares it, then that means extraordinary powers can be exercised. Yeah? And that extraordinary powers, he can determine whether the governor continues to be there.
That's the subject of argument.
Yes, I mean, he can also decide how those extraordinary, measures can take place to deliver on peace and security. Let me tell you, in a state of emergency, the primary concern is to deliver on law and order. You understand me? And there's a precedent for what the president has done. It's not the first time. There was a time a state of emergency was declared in Plateau State. And a sole administrator was appointed by former President Obasanjo. This is not the first time this is taking place. It's the prerogative of the president to determine
Senior Advocate, I know we don't want to go into the issue that is before the Supreme Court, because we're even worried that the Supreme Court is not adjudicating on such sensitive issues.
Not adjudicate on if you are not properly before the court.
No, the reason is because the last time that case went to court, that actually went to court, and there was an issue of local standards. The man who instituted the suit, which is why the PDP governors now said, okay, let's go. Let's determine this thing once and for all. The issue of discretional latitude of a president in the situation of a state of emergency to remove elected officials. You can do every other thing. The elected official is the bone of contention. The argument as to the fact that, oh, the dramatics personnel involved are supposed to be the ones to call for is back and forth. And what I was just asking you was, there is no provision for a sole administrator in the Constitution of the Federal Republic as it is.
Yes. There's no such a specific express provision. But you know that the provision can be expressly given. It can also be impliedly given. It can also be.
It goes to what you said.
It can also be circumstantially given.
It goes to what you said the other time that. This whole thing of interpretation will come there.
Yes.
But let me ask Mr. Lawal. So this is where we are now, and it's like you've already looked into the crystal ball of Jeffrey, who says that as far as he can determine certain things as far as this election is concerned. I'm not going to ask him because he's not my guest. You know, this
I said local government elections.
But from where you stand, where you sit, and from what you know about our country, Mr. Lawal, what are we to expect today? We asked the RSIEC chairman about the level of preparedness, and several places that people have, materials have gone out and all of those things, how far and wide materials ought to have gone, and he gave us the assurance that by now elections ought to have started. What are your expectations today in terms of security, in terms of the logistics, in terms of the turnout? You gave us an idea earlier, but what are your expectations, and what are the things that you think we should guard against?
Thank you very much. I'd like to first correct something your colleague, the man in the studio said. I said the Electoral Act is silent on LG elections. I don't like being misconstrued totally. He's built a total case on something that does not even exist. And he's saying with one voice that the extraordinary powers, and then saying with one voice it can conduct LG elections. For me, that's double standards. The National Assembly cannot control the budget of a state. If it does, at that point, democratic structures in that state are suspended. And we know that. But, you know, let's dilly-dally to the gallery as we wish. Back to the question you just asked. Logistically, I do not think, and I've seen this over LG elections, I've seen quite a lot of logistical issues when it comes to state electoral commissions. I don't know whether it's the amount of money put out for the elections, or it is the general administration of state electoral councils, which normally, you know, ends up with quite, you know, materials not reaching the right place. In the case of Lagos, Kaduna, materials, polling units reduced by the state so that, you know, so they could just attend to selective ones and nobody knows till the day of the elections. We've seen, we would see such issues with parties. Sometimes maybe 6 parties are available for these councillorship elections. Only 3 parties will be printed. And they'll blame an administrative or clerical error, and nothing is ever done or looked into. I expect this kind of quagmires that would happen in the local government elections. I also, like I said, I'm hoping it will be different this time, but Rivers usually has one of the most volatile local government elections in Nigeria. I'm hoping that this will be very different in this conversation. What do I see presently as regards what's going on? For me, I don't expect, and if I'm to score the election from what I think would probably happen, I'll score the election about 30%. Number one, it's not even constituted by democratically elected. That's the first anomaly in the whole situation. And you can dilly-dally around it and speak about the Supreme Court as much as you want, but this is a democracy. For those born under military rule, I know it's kind of hard for them to understand this conversation, but who have spent most of their life in military rule, it's kind of hard for them to understand this conversation. But for me, the LG elections in Rivers is a total anomaly with the presence of the fact that an unelected government is in charge of that particular election.
Okay. Just a quick one, and I'm sure that maybe Dr. Shittu may want to respond to a thing or two you said. But I just want to be clear, when you say that the Electoral Act is silent on local government elections, is that what you said, or I don't want you
yes, when I mean silent on local government elections under an emergency rule, it is silent. That's what I said.
Okay. I don't even think there's any law in the country that provides for any election under any emergency rule, even at the federal level. Is there
Dr. Shittu is here, he's a lawyer.
Well, that's why I'm asking him.
And maybe you'll respond to some of the things I was saying.
Well, I don't want to join issues with the eminent guest who has just commented, because imbued in the democratic process is the right of dissent. You can agree and disagree. What is not permissible is to be disagreeable. So he has expressed I don't know. He has expressed his opinion. He's entitled to it. But I'm speaking from the perspective of being a lawyer. I've looked at the entire provisions of Section 305. There's nowhere they say all democratic structures suspended. But you know that the court itself is a democratic structure. Our judges don't sit even under a democracy, an emergency rule. There's a state high court that has just pronounced, made the order that the election should hold. That's a democratic structure. The court is a democratic structure. The police is a democratic structure. There are even security agencies. They are democratic structures. There's no way you can suspend. What is taking place? Okay, what is suspended is, is the State House of Assembly. And even that does not even suspend the existence of law. The National Assembly can legislate for Rivers State under an emergency rule. You understand me? Which means law is still alive. So it's not. I think what we should be, the advocacy should be that some of the gaps that we have noticed here can be redressed through a process of constitutional amendment. People are saying that we need a brand new constitution to be able to look at some of these gray areas and make specific provisions for them in order to forestall future ambiguities. Okay. You understand me? But in the absence of that, we should make do with what we have. That is when there are gray areas, where there are gaps in constitutional provision, approach the court for interpretation. The wise men who sit as judges will be able to look at. You recall that there was a time, even former President Jonathan, there was a statement as to whether he's entitled to be sworn in as the president of the country following the death of former President Musa Yar'Adua. That matter was taken before the Supreme Court, and that gave rise to the doctrine of necessity. And by virtue of that doctrine, he was ordered to be sworn in. That is why we must begin to effectively utilize the genius services of the judges. When people are appointed as judges, they are supposed to play a unique role in stabilizing the process and then clearing areas of ambiguity so that the law will, normal course of events will move on. You cannot afford to have a vacuum. What all these problems we are saying can be resolved by the court through firm pronouncement. Law, there's a school of thought which says law is nothing but the pronouncement of judges. That's the realist. They believe that you go to court as lawyer on this side or as lawyer on the other side, you make your arguments. It is what the judge pronounces upon that is the law. That's the realist postulate. Now the judge has said election must go on. That's the pronouncement of the High Court of Justice. That's the law. You understand me? So that's why we are thinking, if the judge says don't go ahead with that election, it means the election will not take place. But the judge said go ahead. So now we're having the election. And there are other issues that you have raised. He adjoined those issues for determination. Until those issues are adjudicated by the court, the assumption is that...
Let's say, at the end of the day,
yes,
maybe we would have avoided this if this election did not hold under an emergency situation. But now we're here, and the concern, which is what I want to bring to Mr. Kunle, is the issue of what precedent we're setting as far as electoral jurisprudence is concerned. You mentioned Section 11 provides for legislation to be made at the National Assembly when the State Assembly can't.
Yes, yes.
But subsection 4 protects the governor and the deputy. You don't go near there. It's as clear in the law as that is. So let me come to you, Kunle, as far as this particular one is concerned. What precedent do you think we are setting here with what is going on in Rivers State? Because perhaps the honorable judge of the High Court in Rivers State was relying on Section 84, subsection 15, that clearly says that when an election is already in motion, you can't stop it by even any court's pronouncement.
So for me, if a country has to go to a court as regards matters of an election and there are problems with its laws, that's what I've always believed. The judicial interference in our elections, for me, is a little high for a democracy. It's a little too high, and it shows that our laws are not clear, they are ambiguous, and they are vague. There are conversations in which you would have and you say, the Nigerian democracy is supposed to stand on its own. We're supposed to have elections. We're not supposed to have elections decided by courts. That is wrong. That shows a fundamental break or bridge in the basic foundation of a constitutional democracy. But lawyers want to argue another way. You know, lawyers think they own the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It belongs actually to every Nigerian. But the conversation is, in my opinion, I do not consider the LG elections, and I'm saying this clearly in national city, the LG elections in Rivers State right now under a sole administrator sets dangerous precedents for our young democracy. It sets the standard or the tone that an appointed person who serves on the behest of an elected president, who is not supposed to control matters in a state which still have conflicting stories on the emergency rule position, but anyway, conduct an LG election. For me, it's totally not good for our democracy. It will bring up another argument. You see, preceding other emergency rules like we've had in Plateau and Adama, we clearly didn't say an LG elections happen, which is why we can fall back to that and say LG elections didn't happen under this. But now it's happening under this. It means 10 years from now, we'll be talking, it happened in Port Harcourt. So we can as well launch another emergency rule, conduct an LG elections, conduct a State House of Assembly elections, and even probably conduct a gubernatorial elections. For me, this precedents, in my opinion,
well, Mr. Lawal,
not good for a democracy.
Well, Mr. Lawal, there's something Dr. Shitu said earlier, that all these issues are most certainly valid. The issues that we're raising right now, the concerns that have been expressed, and all of this, they are totally valid. But he has made a recommendation that maybe we should detail some of these conflicts, as if we can use that term, in the constitution amendment process, so that maybe we ensure that this doesn't happen again. Because essentially, I think the point being made here is, we cannot say because of a particular situation that we have on our hands that democratic processes should be suspended. We have a sole administrator in the state. Should we also have sole administrators at the local government levels? Perhaps that's the challenge. If you were to recommend adjustments to the Constitution or to our laws to forbid this kind of situation we have, because this one is already playing, we can't stop it, what would be your recommendations if any adjustments were to be made?
First, the first adjustment I would like to look into would be the powers of the president to suspend an elected state governor. That should not exist. They're both elected, they're both mandated by each virtue of elections by particular people in a particular territorial boundary. I don't believe the president should be. I agree the State House of Assembly can impeach or suspend the governor, as the case may be. So I do not believe in federal interference in state matters. I feel that has underbuilt our states. Secondly, I do not think state electoral commissions, as constituted, can conduct elections into local government offices. They are by a little trumped by the fact that they are appointed by state governors. Secondly, we don't see any democracy. 97%, between 96 to 97% are being won by the incumbent party in all situations. I don't think that is democratic. I'm for the return of state elections back to INEC till we can manage our state electoral commissions properly. And then thirdly, I also believe, like I said, we need to sit on this autonomy as granted by the Constitution for local governments, which will probably make them more functional and will participate more when we realize no local government in Nigeria receives less than 250 million in fact allocation per month. But it's not a discussion that we want to have mostly. So I think we should provide the autonomous nature for local governments and more people participate in its elections.
All right, in a moment we'll be switching gears to find out what exactly is going on the streets of Port Harcourt, as well as the 23 local government areas, as much as our cameras can catch. The elections are ongoing in Rivers State. In case you just joined us, this is Channel CV, and we are on ground in Rivers State to ensure that we'll bring you up to speed with the elections, local government elections today, August the 30th, in the 23 local government areas. We understand about 15 or so political parties, 17 political parties are participating in this exercise. So we'll be following up. The INEC chairman has spoken to us, sorry, the RSIEC chairman, I should say. That's the resident, the chairman of the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission has had a conversation with us in terms of his preparations and what he's doing. And we have Kunle Lawal, of the Electoral College, and also Dr. Wafshitu, who is here, who is doing the heavy lifting of the law for us. He's a senior advocate of Nigeria, Leonard Silk. Dr. Shitu, so these pictures you're seeing now is enforcement to make sure that if you don't have any business as an electoral official, as a journalist, as a security personnel, or people that provide essential services in that sense, you don't have any business being on the road today in Rivers State. We understand there's been a curfew has been declared. So that means you're restricted to the area where you vote, your polling units. Anything outside that, you'll be breaching and breaking the law as far as elections are concerned. So this is the free street of Port Harcourt. I'm not sure where this is, but it's one of the streets where, just to show you, it's empty. People just carefully watching.
Now, you know, one of the things that the chairman of the Electoral Commission said earlier is that as at 8:30, elections have begun in different parts of Rivers State. Well, this is one of those places. These are live pictures coming from one polling unit in Rivers State.
Yeah, I'm just praying. Dr. Shitu will come to you, but we're just looking at polling ballot boxes. I can see chairmanship. That's chairman and councillor of elections. So the one in red, if you're casting your vote, in case you're watching TV and you haven't set out to vote, so be clear, from what we're seeing, the one in red is for chairmanship, the one in green is for councillor. But this looks quite empty. I can see the police. Okay, not the police now. Yeah, so there's a policeman seated, because even in an election, there's clarity as to the distance between the policeman and the polling units.
Absolutely.
So these are the things we look out for when you go to the field. Mm-hmm. So the electoral officers are there, the polling unit officers. And this is Obiakpor local government area in Rivers State. The officials?
Ward 13.
Ward 13.
So if you are nearby,
you can see people here.
Yeah, I mean,
what's going on?
If you are nearby, call your neighbor, tell someone to tell someone to come out and vote. You know, one of the assurances that has been given is that there is security provided for everyone
there has to be
who comes.
emergency. There has to be.
Exactly. Well, yeah, that didn't stop protests when people were protesting.
And it was peaceful anyway, so
which is of course peaceful, yes. So it'll be important for us to get that perspective from people. And I hear we have Deborah again.
Yeah, we'll get to Deborah in just a moment as soon as she's ready for us. But I think our camera is panning around the area in this Ward 13 in Obiakpo local government area of Rivers State. So we just shown you the ballot box, but this is just a street away, just across the ballot box where the officials are standing, where the officials are seated rather, and the police officer is already there to make sure that people who are interested in coming out to vote come out. But it's very disturbing and worrying. Obiakpo has a sick. In fact, if you go to governorship or presidential election, this Obiakpo is what you have to look out for in terms of election results.
So if you are going to win.
Yeah, this is critical for you. Obiakpo is a determining, in fact, I think it's one of the, among the richest local governments in Nigeria. Obiakpo should be among the top 5, if not second or third. That's how rich they are in numbers and everything. So, Deborah, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, fantastic. We've just been trying to interpret.
I can.
Fantastic, Deborah. Great. We've just been trying to interpret what we're seeing. We're seeing, I think somebody has just cast in a ballot. Walk us through what we're seeing, by the way. You're the one on ground.
Okay, this is Unit 15, Ward 13 in Obiakpo local government area. It might just be important to note that this is the Rumola area, which is like the center of the city. So you would expect voters to be around here a whole lot. They have a voting strength of 1,324 in this unit. And they've been voting according to the electoral officers here for the past 50 minutes. And well, this is what has so far been casted. If you look at the ballot box, you see that counting here, I don't see more than 6 of it, of the slips, the voting slips. Even at the other ballot box, I don't see more than that as well. So if they've been voting for 50 minutes, I don't know what I would say that the turnout isn't encouraging, you know, because at 50 minutes in a place that is in the metropolis, you would expect that the voting would be more, the turnout would be a little bit more than what we're seeing. However, people are voting. Someone has just arrived to cast his vote. They are coming in trickles. That's what is very visible here in this particular unit. There's another unit right opposite the road. If you come with me, I've been standing here for a while now, and I haven't really seen people going there to vote. And even from here, I can see that the ballot box is looking empty even from my distance, right opposite. We'll just take a quick stroll there.
Yeah. Yeah, so, Deborah, I'm sure you can hear me. When you walk...
This is actually Rumola Road, so this is another unit. I understand this is Unit 20.
Okay.
21, Unit 21. So, this particular unit, I see nothing inside the ballot boxes. This is Unit 21 in Ward 13 as well. So, and apparently, how long has this gone on? How long have voting commenced here? 30 minutes, okay. So here, voting has commenced within the last 30 minutes, and their boxes are all empty. Doesn't seem like people are turning out in this particular unit yet. Perhaps we'll check again.
All right, but Deborah, can you hear?
Units actually, Unit 20 and Unit 21. So which one is 20, which one is 21? 20 and that's 21. And in the both boxes, there are no voting slips. That's what we have. This is Unit 20 and 21 in Obiakpo, Ward 19, Ward 13. And then we also saw scanty voting at Unit 15, opposite the road there. So that's what we have.
All right, Deborah, if you can hear me. If you can. Yes.
A different scenario.
All right. Okay, I was hoping you can hear me. Just can you hear me now, Deborah? All right, can you hear me, Deborah?
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. there's compliance. You can see the street.
dear.
Take a shot of the streets. Everybody, I can hear you.
Okay, fantastic. I think so that if you pick my questions correctly, I would like you to go to where the polling officers are and let them walk us through how the process is supposed to be. I don't know whether I can see beavers machine. Are they using beavers? When people come, how does it work for them? So just help us speak to them and let's have an education, if you will, on air.
Okay. Hello, good day, sir. What's your name, please?
My name is Ebere.
Okay, Bere who?
Elena.
Okay, you are the...
Polling clerk of Unit 21, Ward 13.
Okay. So tell us your impression since you got here. How many minutes have you been here? And what is your perception of what's going on here today?
Yeah, thank you. The materials just arrived 30 minutes ago. We're already set for elections. Some persons that came in said they forget their PVC, so they went back to get their PVC so that we'll start voting. So far so good. The election has been peaceful and we are good to go.
Okay, I also have some human rights people here who seem to be monitoring what's going on in the units. This is Mrs. Mary Chijoke. Good day, ma.
Thank you very much.
How are you doing and how's the election going by your perception?
I'm doing fine. By my perception, we still have voting empathy. The election is peaceful, but we are begging people to come out and vote. So thank you very much.
So, well, that's the impression that this is leaving us with at this time. We will just keep monitoring and see whether there are other scenarios that are better than what we've seen here.
Okay.
Thank you, Deborah. I want to make an appeal, to everyone who is watching us. So, Deborah, don't worry, we'll get back to you shortly. As you said, just monitor a number of other places, and then we'll be waiting to hear from you. But I just want to make an appeal to the people who are watching us at home, particularly in River State. Anywhere you are in Nigeria, you know anyone in River State, please just appeal to them to go out and vote. As you can see, everywhere is peaceful. The roads are free, and it's interesting that the polling booths are right there in front of your house.
Especially, let's contextualize those in the city center that we can see.
Exactly.
We don't know what's going on in the riverine areas yet.
Maybe we'll get information from there as well. But at least from what you can see, everywhere is peaceful. The security officials are there. The election materials are there. And if we're talking about waste, it will be on us, right, to deploy all of these resources, print ballot papers, deploy personnel, and we still don't go out to vote. At the end of the day, it is not a them thing anymore, it's an us thing. It's just the appeal we are making here at Channels Television. Let's justify the investments that we are making in all of these things. It begs the question, Mr. Lawal, my apologies, to that maybe we haven't really engaged the people enough, Mr. Lawal. Maybe we haven't done well. One of the things, in my experience on this job, and even from the Third Republic, monitoring elections and all until now, one of the consistent things that we have seen is that the job of creating awareness and educating the voter is not just that of the electoral umpire, it's also that of the political parties. 17 political parties, according to the RSIEC chairman, participating in this election, and here we are, and the streets are still empty. What are your thoughts on that? Is it on the people? Is it on the political parties? Is it on governments? What exactly do you think is happening here?
I thank you very much. This is the topic I'm very invested in. For me, I think it's a problem with all of us. It's not restricted to just the political parties, the people, and this is how I look at it. Maybe because of our time under military rule, we have become so drunk with presidential elections. And most of the advocacy, now I'm going to hit on people in the CSO space, on NGOs, most of the advocacy is on the level of state governments and federal governments. Open governance systems, everything remains on that level. Most of the advocacy remains there. When you come down to the media is ready to jump at a presidential debate, a gubernatorial debate. When you say, come, let's do a local government debate, I'm not pointing at channels directly, so I'm packing everybody.
No, but
into this
I can exempt channels on your behalf because we have dedicated
I'm not
4
pointing,
hours.
like I said.
4 hours this morning to the local government elections. But go ahead.
Okay, so the media, when it comes to local government elections, everybody bills or exits the room. This has brought quite a low cadre. Now, it's shocking to understand that the local government seems to be more important under a military rule than it is under a democratic rule. And I believe a lot of us, everybody's guilty of it to different levels. The amount of money even released by the federal government to local governments is even shrouded in kind of secrecy. It's not public information. It's public information, but nobody wants to look for that information. Those who don't know what their local governments receive, we don't even understand the jobs of local governments. It's so bad that even those who are in local government positions do not understand the jurisdictions of their offices. And I know because I interfaced with them in Lagos, in different parts of Nigeria, they do not even understand the jurisdiction. We're in a country where our civic education and our understanding of politics does not even let us know that councillors are like the National Assembly of the local government. We don't even understand that. And therein lies the massive problem with local governments. The expose on it and the conversation, even the so-called not too young to run bill, everyone who came out under that conversation wants to run for House Rep, wants to run for this, wants to run for that. Nobody looks at that. Okay, I don't know how we've gotten into this quagmire, but I think it's something we really, really need to get out of. You can look at Obiakpo. I think it has 3 oil wells, is it, or 2? It's one of the richest local governments, like you stated, in Rivers State, which means the local government chairman is going to be controlling something within the tune of 500 million and 1 billion per month in federal allocations. You can see in a ward 6 votes. The local government chairman is going to probably win, give or take, with less than 3,000 votes. You can mark that. You need less than 3,000 votes, 17 political parties participating, and over 1,000 people per polling unit. I think it goes to show, I didn't want to be right when I said earlier today that we're going to witness a 4%, 4% to 5% turnout. To begin to see it is painful. Yes, I understand the indices that made me make that statement, but to see it in practicality is hurtful.
Unfortunately, you are right. On this matter, unfortunately, you are right. And you have raised a very, very important conversation here. My apologies, Jeffrey. I know you have a question for him. But let me quickly take, Dr. Shitu's perspective on some of the issues that he has raised. And a number of other people have said the same thing. In all of our advocacy, we advocate more for the federal and state elections. Hardly do we ever give attention to local government elections. Raising the question again of the quality of people we are likely to attract. Because if on the one hand you don't know what your job is, on the other hand you don't even know whether you are qualified for the job, and you get there and you have to control the amount of money that he's talking about. Most certainly, the sheer bottom line is going to intimidate the fellow who's been appointed to do the job.
Well, I agree with almost all his submissions in this respect. I think what this also requires is that more quality people should begin to show interest in the local government administration. For instance, if you want to be the current FCT Minister, Wike, started from the local government level. He started his political career as a local government chairman. And then now he rose from there to become a governor and then to become a minister. Now he's also FCT Minister. I think more people, you and I, should begin to show interest in the local government administration. Because that is where you are likely to impact the people more. All of us here belong to one local government administration or the other. Where you live, There's a local government council there. And then if you are having challenges about services, education, healthcare, and some other, deliverables that will impact your life, is that government that is closer to you. If we have a power supply or some other challenges that we have in our day-to-day living, issues that will take directly to the local government administration. So people should, focus on that area. Beyond that, I think the chairman of Rivers State Electoral Commission was on air the other time and assured us that they have made a lot of preparation. I can see that what he told us I can see evidence of that. Now, I think you cannot, as far as this election is concerned, begin to put blame at the doorstep of the Rivers State Electoral Commission. You see the officials are there, the voting materials are there. We can see clearly. Now, I think the real problem now is focus on the people. And that the people must come out. So what you are doing here, all other television stations, you must also do that. You say you have dedicated 4 hours to cover this election. That is salutary. And I think the media, both electronic and the print, must join this crusade of enlightenment, of awareness, of sensitization, so that everybody is sufficiently. No, we cannot begin to say because we are not seeing the kind of governance that we expect. They will lay back. They will sit down, look. It doesn't help the process. People must come out. And again, we cannot begin it's premature now to say that people won't come out. They will come out. Some people like to see the weekend as a period where they will rest. And then rest very well before they come out.
Yeah, we'll go for a quick break. In election, there are like 3 phases. There's a phase of this phase we're talking about, going out to vote, and then the counting phase. Then there's a phase we call the quiet before the storm. That is when, between the movement of those materials and declaration of results, that's when the real drama really happens, especially at bigger elections. Special sunrise dedicated to covering the exercise in Rivers State. So we've been touching base across board, especially in the city center. So we've actually spoken with the chairman of the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission. Our correspondent Deborah Balama is also on ground. She's checked in on, I think, Unit 15 and Unit 13. Unit 15, Unit 20, Unit 21, or 13 in Obiakpo local government area. So we're going to touch base on other local government areas in Port Harcourt local government, the Riverine area, and the Upland area. My guest, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Dr. Wahab Shitu, and also the Director of Electoral College, Kunle Lawal, joining us virtually. Senior Advocate, let me come to you as we continue the conversation. And picking back from what Ayo said while we're talking about turnout of voters, and it's quite worrying. That's why we need to keep the conversation going. As far as this is concerned, when elections like this that have low turnouts happen, do we really say this was really? Of course, they will be declared winner and all of that. But in terms of the will of the people, proper will of the people, because will of the people means the people came out to vote for candidates of their choice, and then the majority had their way. So, for instance, I remember a governor, I think it's a Edo State governor, that in one of his political statements, he was assuring the president is going to give him 2 million votes in 2027 election. I say it's not possible. Because if you look at the trajectory of the election in Edo State, for instance, it's just about 10–12% have voted for the governor to determine out of about 5 million people in the state and about 2 million registered voters. So assuring 2 million is just a political statement. But I'm referencing that to the effect that we see this play out across board. Politicians will come and give assurances of number of votes, and when we see the numbers, we're like, what exactly happened? So does this really represent the will of the people? This turnout, and how does it affect governance by extension? I'm going to throw that question as well to Kunle.
Well, it does not really reflect the will of the people when few people out of a very large population come out to express to cast their votes. And that should be worrisome. And it's also an indictment on the process. That means that we are not doing more in terms of political education. We are not doing more in terms of sensitization. We are not doing more in terms of promoting awareness. So all the agencies that are supposed, to assist in delivery on this process must, raise their game. I'm particularly impressed lately. The National Orientation Agency, the DG, Isa Onilu, is doing a lot of work. But I think more of this work should be focused on sensitizing the people to come out during elections. The National Orientation Agency, the various media houses, both electronic and, the print, the political parties.
It has anything to do with what Mr. Lawal said the other time when he said that maybe because we haven't really escaped from our military past.
Well, there are a combination of factors is responsible. We cannot just say this is one particular factor responsible. I think the reality is that people are disenchanted. Some elements are disenchanted with the process. I mean, what has happened in the aftermath of elections in terms of delivery on governance. People are not, and the people are suffering too in some areas. They carry this over to what is going to happen. We must change that narrative. That it is only when you participate in the process that you are able to influence policies, and that you are able to also, raise your voice. To monitor those who are elected by you. So you don't allow disenchantment to stop you from engaging the process. You don't sit down, look, and then criticize policies because you have not all along been part of the process. So I think we should redirect our mindsets. We should, and all of us here, you are playing that role now. What you are doing here is also very important. Dedicating 4 hours of your time. That means you are not even thinking of the profit motive. Because whether you like it or not, Channels is not set up for charity. But at least you know that it's also important for you to contribute to the governance process in order for you to be able to effectively deliver on your obligations. That should be the attitude. I think, you understand me? That should be the attitude. Political parties have a role to play. Electoral bodies have a role to play. Citizens themselves too have a role to play. NGOs have a role to play. And like what Mr. Lawal of the Electoral, college is doing, is a public service, duty. All of us must take ownership of the process. It's beyond just electoral bodies because it's about our destiny, it's about our country, and then we must not sit down, look, and then allow things to degenerate. In political office holders too must not just come to the people when they need them for elections. And then after election, then we start carrying on as if they are, you understand me? Accessibility. They should connect with the people. Constituency projects must, reach out to the people. I see some of them doing a lot in terms of delivery on democracy dividends. But a lot more still must be done so that people can feel the impact of governance and then take ownership of the process.
Let me take it to Mr. Lawal. Mr. Lawal, similar question. I'm trying to dig deep into the issue of this will of the people. Whoever is elected, whether he was elected by a majority of just one, maybe 10 people voted him or 20 people, he said, I have the mandate of the people. The mandate of the people.
Can you be kind? A majority of one.
Mr. Lawal, I know you understand my question. Just help us out here. This will of the people against voter apathy.
The last time Nigeria had, let's say, a president who was by the will of the people, which you can say is a majority of participation in election above 50%, was 2015. Post 2015, we've been dropping below 20-something percent, now as low as 24-25%. When you're at gubernatorial level, as running for governor of a state, the election participation drops to about range of 18 to 21% in some states. When you get to local government election, you're down below 7%. No government section in Nigeria represents the exact will of the population. But that is to say, in a democracy, it's the people that come out that determine who is in power. And I think this is where Nigerians miss it. And in all my election experience, results can only be tampered with when you are not fully around for your elections. Meaning, if a polling unit has, give or take, 700 people, the polling unit's results will remain the same if 650 people came out. If 100 people came out, it gives them a disparity of 600 votes to alter. And I've seen this and I've seen this happen in separate elections. Democracy only stands for the people that come out. But here's the conversation. Like what we do at the Electoral College, we feel that a lot of Nigerians vote apathy. It's also because the people do not know. So many Nigerians do not even know. The easiest people to hold accountable are the local government. Why? Because they do not have immunity. The Constitution does not provide immunity for them. Meaning that if they touch either their federal allocation or their IJR and you take the case to court, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the same state using the Nigerian factor. Another state, or probably the FCT. They can go to jail. But we don't even know that. Now, like the Sam said in the studio, there are a lot of factors that clearly come together. For me, the highest is political illiteracy. The fact we do not even know what to demand. We don't even know the function of local government. We are not, we're so distant from it. And I don't know why. There's so much money. I think in 2024 alone, over over 2.33 trillion, 2.33 trillion was spent on local governments alone. And we can't account for it. So the will of the people is always on the basis of how politically educated they are. That's how I choose to define it. So if you do not understand the powers of a particular position, why would you even participate? That's why we have below 10%. The people also doubt how powerful a governor is. They know a governor is powerful, but restricted to their collective view of power in Nigeria. That's why elections drop to below 20% when it comes to gubernatorial elections. The only office we believe in is the president. And even though we have 93 million registered voters as of last check, we cannot account for 30 million voters in the presidential election. So for me, the biggest problem is political illiteracy. And when you talk about political illiteracy, most people will say at the grassroots. No. I even believe that the most political illiterate people in Nigeria are what you term the middle class. And the middle class in politics are those who, of course, have passed secondary school leaving certificate to professors and etc. To me, they are the most political illiterate bunch. And we've done our studies. I'm not saying this because I just want to say it. I'm saying it because they really understand what it takes in political process, who does what, how it's being done, and how it's supposed to affect them. Most of us demand funny things from the legislature, and we're not even supposed to demand things that we are. Constituency projects, I believe there's no part of the Constitution that validates that. But that's what we demand from our National Assembly instead of demanding laws and oversight on the executive. So you see where the problem lies. Massively, it is political literacy. I think that's what's responsible for the fact that we have voter apathy, and then eventually our government does not represent the will of people.
Interesting perspectives, Mr. Lawal. But today, while we are addressing the cogent issues and everything, today is a day that we have to give attention to. Whether people vote or not, Dr. Shitu, local government chairmen
will emerge.
Councillors will emerge. And to something that you said earlier about us challenging the system, attracting the right set of people. Let's say this is our repentance period, okay? That chairmen will emerge, councillors will emerge, whether you voted for them or not, and they will administer your resources. They are your resources, whether you know it is yours or not. In terms of now testing the process and pressuring the process to begin to attract the right quality of people, what do you think should follow? I know that Jeffrey is inching for post-election activities, PVAS, transfer of election votes and all of that. What are your expectations? How do you think people can begin to pressure the system, test the system, as we say, so that we can begin to attract the right set of people?
Well, I think people can provide oversight in terms of monitoring. Now that the local government council is not just local government council of yesteryears ago, they are in charge of very, very huge budgets. A lot of funds are now coming directly to local government council. That's the effect of the pronouncement of the Supreme Court. So the local government now is big enterprise. You understand me? So people should constitute themselves into committees, into groups, into pressure outlets to oversee what is going on there. I'm from a local government in Kwara State. And I think, and we have a platform, the Senna platform. And every time you see issues relating to how our local government is governed being discussed. In fact, if you see people coming out with postings that look how much, in fact, they even post to the platforms what is received by the council chairman, and then what is done. And you see the local government chairman too, trying to justify what he is doing in terms of projects here, assets here, so people are aware that a lot of money is coming into the local government, and they are interested in how these monies are being, expended. That is what should happen, and that is why you see a lot of development taking place, for local government, for instance. And I'm not saying that just to boast. That's the first community grammar school in the entire northern Nigeria came from Ofa. And the people are really, people that you should take ownership of what is going on there. Yeah, the chairman is there to represent us. He's there to deliver to the local government. He must be accountable to us. And we must get him to be accountable to us. Because the resources that is put under his care is our collective commonwealth. You understand what I'm saying? And that's how people should see it. I'm in Lagos here. I take interest in what is going on in my local government. Everybody should take interest in what is going on there. In terms of services. And then you should also highlight areas of specific needs of the people, what they need. So that, everybody is, they are put constantly on their toes.
Which actually, hardly happens, because people just see projects that they don't, sometimes it's like, who asked you? Anyway, Mr. Lawal, let me ask you this question. Yeah. One of the things that a number of people might be looking at now, and I'm sure it's something you are perhaps also equally concerned about, is how friendly the design of our electoral processes are for young people. Given that the percentage of voters that we have They are way more than 50%. Young people are way more than 50% in the voting public that Nigeria has today. In terms of the design of the electoral process, do you think it is something, do you think it needs work so that it can appeal more to the young people? Or what's your take?
Well, first, I would like to say how the channel statistically bring people from the same local government. But this conversation,
you're from the same local government.
You will tell us. To young people, yes, what we do at the Electoral College, we've tried to ensure that we kind of make politics inviting, interesting. We've tried to, make a few things, that, would seem attractive, that they want to read, but we want to pay attention to. We have an ebook that, tries to make the whole process more inviting. I would say a lot of us have to do a lot in this regard. Now, be it media, be it government organizations, like you mentioned, the National Orientation Agency, INEC itself, and then CSOs and NGOs like ourselves, etc., need to do more in bringing this, because young people actually make up 65% of our voting population. Right now, as of 2027, they are going to even make very close to 70% of our voting population. But what's shocking to understand is that they are even one of the least sectors we are looking at, those who actually participate in elections. So if 70% of us are really not concerned about elections, and there is a problem. And the only way to try to break this is we've tried to interface, tried to work with, things in the entertainment industry, bringing political literacy conversations to people that they look up to, and, they try to want to listen to, have to get them into those conversations. We've also looked at mainstreaming, like the work the Electoral College does. We're looking at mainstreaming into movies, actualities about the process. Because the Nigerian movie industry has kind of, has turned, no offense to them, but has turned almost everything political into a horror movie. We are trying to demystify that, working with a few producers, trying to show the real process, so that subconsciously they are being educated. A lot of more work will be put into this by a lot of more, but they are critical to even getting this local government right, because they should be the ones running for councillor. They should be that under 35. They should be the ones running for councillor. They should be the ones who are local government chairman. They should be the ones participating. In short, this is their election. And to see them not even participate, see them not even part of the process, it's highly, highly, highly a big question we need to ask of our democracy.
Let me come to you. The first schedule of the Constitution clearly states
the functions.
The function of the local government. And if you look at the schedule, you see that when I look at these provisions, I tell myself, literally the states have usurped some of this responsibility. Yes. So don't you think that this usurping of responsibility by the state is really why people are not bothered about this? Because they just feel that local government, apart from the civil servants that are there, is just to empower the boys. Put your boys so that when election comes, because they will help you win election as governor or whatever. And then you also see a situation where, if not for the Supreme Court judgment that is still yet to be implemented effectively the way we expect it to be implemented, governors control the funds of local government at their whims and caprices. Not all of them, though. Some don't do it. But if you look at that first schedule and look at what they do, provision and maintenance of primary health, primary adult vocational education, development of agriculture and natural resources other than exploitation of materials, provision and maintenance of health services. There isn't the control and regulation of outdoor advertising and hoarding. Maybe all this, is it last time? I've forgotten what they do. Restaurant, bakeries. There are so many things here that if you look at what some of these basic things they do, states have taken over.
States cannot lawfully take over.
But they have unlawfully taken over.
So that is why we...
For instance, control and regulation of outdoor advertising.
Yes.
It is not controlled by the state, by the local governments. That is what the
you see, that's
signed and advertising agencies of some state governments now do.
That should be the focus of the advocacy. The advocacy should focus on this. You see, some of these functions, that's what the point I wanted to make, and you just you preempted me. We should, perhaps the advocacy should say, what are the, we should now get people to be aware about the functions earmarked for local government council by the Constitution. Some people don't know what the local government councils are supposed to do.
I beg to differ, sir. Okay. And here is why. The laws, this signage and advertising agency thing, for instance, are made by the state houses of assembly, who have superintendent power over the local government's administrations. And the constitution, not just the law, says the control and regulation of outdoor advertising is the responsibility of the local government administrations. And here we are. Who appoints whoever is heading the signage and advertising agency of a good number of states in Nigeria?
I agree with you. I think that still comes to what I said earlier. That if we want to practice democracy, then we should practice democracy by respect for the rule of law. I said so. So if we were to, and the respect of the rule of law encompasses primarily respect for the Constitution. When you claim to be practicing democracy, constitutional democracy, and you are not respecting the provisions of the Constitution, then you are not practicing democracy.
Well, there's democracy at play in Rivers State today. And I heard one of our colleagues is that.
Yes, Leonard Sek, it's not as if we want to cut you. You know, we're touching base. Kunle will also come to you in just a moment, because I know you're very passionate about this as well. Let's get to our correspondent in Port Harcourt, Kumbi. She is in Rumo Precom. That is the local government of the... Obiakpo is a local government, but that's a community that Nyesom Wike, the FCT Minister, comes from, Rumo Precom. Kumbi, good morning, I think is in order. Tell us what's going on where you are. All right, Kumbi, if you can hear me, I just wanted you to give us an update of what is happening. As the minister come out to vote, what exactly is happening? Oh dear. Well, we'll try to establish connection.
Right here at Rumo Precom, Ward 9, Unit 007. And as you can see right behind me, the officials are actually trying to prepare for the voting that would commence shortly. They arrived some minutes past 9:26 a.m. and they're still trying to set up. As of now, voting hasn't commenced, and we've also seen security operatives around this polling unit, and a handful of voter observers are also here to monitor activities at this polling unit. So right now, everything is calm. Voting hasn't started, but we're expecting that these activities will kick off, as the day, goes by.
All right, Kumbi, I wanted to find out from you, is that the polling unit the FCT Minister is expected to vote later on in the day whenever it comes out?
Yes, the FCT Minister is actually expected to vote here. We're still waiting for his arrival, for him to come and, cast his vote at this polling unit. But for now, voting hasn't started, like I said earlier, and we're just waiting for everything to, come and take place as expected in this polling unit.
All right. Thank you, Kumbi. We'll touch base with you. As soon as that starts happening, I'm sure you will let us know so we can come to you and be part of that whole exercise, because there are a couple of other persons. But we'll come back to the studio. Okay, maybe, Kumbi, you walk us through. I can see the camera zooming in. I'm not sure, but tell me, what exactly are you telling us?
All right, so we would actually speak to one of the electoral officials right now, who is still trying to prepare the materials for voters to cast their vote. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Okay, please, can you tell us your name?
Ichemwa Justice.
All right. We noticed that you came like 9:28 a.m. and you're still trying to, prepare the materials here. But what are you really expecting from this day?
My job here is just to make sure everything goes smoothly and people vote according to their parties. That's just it.
All right. Do you have enough materials for voters to actually, exercise their franchise?
Yes, I have enough voters because I still have their names and orders for me to attend to them.
How many number of voters are registered at this polling unit?
I can't say at the moment.
You don't have the records?
I have the records, but I have other jobs doing. So anyone that comes, I checked and the person registered because I still have enough paper for them here to register.
Okay. Well, can you give us an estimate?
I can't give you that, ma'am.
But the number of voters registered, you still don't have that figure as well?
Because I just came into this polling unit, so I'm still on my records, which you can see I'm making the stamps for them to register, so I can't go there for now, ma'am.
All right. Thank you so much. So we'll be monitoring activities at this polling unit and we'll definitely report back accordingly. Back to you, Jeffrey.
All right, Kumbi, just before I let you go, we'll try and get the number of voters in that polling unit, but that's quite critical. But before we let you go, I want you to find out from him or whoever is assisting him, how are they voting? Are they using BVAS? At least for the national election state, we're clear on BVAS will help us determine the number of registered voters so that we don't have overvoting and the shenanigans that happen in election. So if there is no BVAS being used, biometrics to determine who is an authentic voter at that polling unit and determining, avoid rigging and all of that, how would they be able to assure credibility of the exercise? Just help us find out about whether they're using BVAS or not.
Okay, so let me go back to the electoral official. Would like to know, sir, are there beavers here? Because we can't see anything currently. We just see that there are papers and it's the manual process.
It's just the manual process.
So you're not making use of beavers here at this polling unit?
No.
Why is that though? Because it's expected that beavers is used, during the election.
Depending on what they provide for the election, that's what we are going to use at the polling unit.
Okay, so it wasn't provided, BVAS wasn't provided for this polling unit?
It wasn't provided, generally.
Thank you so much. So, like you said, there's no BVAS here. We only can see the manual process, which is the paper stamp, where they put the ink and then they stamp. So, we expect that this polling unit actually sees a lot of voters come by because right now we haven't seen anyone even waiting for the officials to finish the process that they've started. But however it is, we'll be on ground to monitor activities here.
All right, great job. Kumbi will come back to you as soon as we get further details from you. But back here in our studios, Leonard Silk, let me go to Kunle. Kunle, these are some of the issues we raise, for state elections, federal elections, we're used to using BVAS, but you have been on ground. How do we really assure or get a credible exercise when we can't use electronic voting, or not electronic vote, BVAS, for instance, for purposes of accreditation and the entire thing? Because we know how it works with the other elections. You go, you're verified, you're accredited with the BVAS. The BVAS captures how many people showed up to vote. So whatever happens above the number that is on the BVAS, that election, that polling unit is cancelled. But now that we don't have all of that, how do they walk around local government elections? Doesn't this create room for, malpractice?
You see, earlier in the conversation, I stated clearly that INEC needs to take over states elections, and this is one of the anomalies I was talking about. You cannot successfully verify on ground the exact. You heard him in the interview. How many people are in this polling unit? He could not give you that number. He could not. He just had names. He's going to cross-check and PVC numbers, which he's going to cross-check. That is not a viable method of how do I put it, of voting. Whether we like it or not, Nigeria must begin to look at the way to tie voters' card to NIN, whether we like it or not eventually, to solve these anomalies, so that maybe they have access to the NIN portal for state elections. And what I'm more critical with taking the election totally to INEC, and that's because of intentional supremacy of the incumbent ruling party on and their powers on state electoral commissions. So I've never really thought local government elections based on what's on ground are really verifiable with voters, and that's why you have so many anomalies with LG elections. It's normally complicated. I know you guys are concentrating on Obiapo, but if there's anything I've learned from local government elections, participation in more rural areas are better than participation in dense areas. So if you have a place like Obiapo or Port Harcourt, major places, voting turnout is normally scary, or more boost. And but if you go to into the hinterlands, into remote areas, voter turnout is usually better in such areas than in suburban areas.
And that should be a concern. Well, we're still talking. Well, by the way, Mr. Lawal, we are not really focusing on one particular local government, irrespective of whoever it is. Every Nigerian, in the eye of the law, as the learned Sikh will say, in the eye of the law, every Nigerian is equal. Isn't that the case, sir?
That's
okay. Now, given that, you are told us here, you've advised that Nigerians should begin to interrogate the processes, irrespective of whatever the outcome is today. Now, there's something the First Lady said, re-echoing something the President had often said, even before he became President. Power is not served a la carte. You have to take it. Now, people in power, even as low, well, forgive me my use of the term, as a councillor, don't just want to relinquish it. Consequently, sometimes some people, when you just look them in the eye and ask them some questions, they are up in arms. How do people safely interrogate this process in the interest of our nation?
Thank you. I think there should be a change of mindset, attitudinal chemistry on the part of political office holders. First, they need to change their own mindset to recognize that they are supposed to be servants of the people and not masters of the people. When you are elected into a public office, you are elected as a servant. The number one public servant that we have in the country is the president. And all other office holders are also servants. If they see themselves as servants, then they will then realize that granting access to people to see them is not a privilege. It's a right. That's the first thing. Secondly, they should also know that they are elected to provide service to the people. And when they provide that service, they are not doing the people a favor. They are simply fulfilling the obligation of their mandate. So it should be easy for people, subject to compliance with established protocols, to assess their chairman, to assess their councillors, to assess their governors.
But you said something about change of mindset.
Yes.
And it goes to what Mr. Lawal also said the other time. How does government communicate? But more importantly, how do the people communicate with the people that are governing them, so to speak.
Yes.
Here is why I asked the question. And Jeffrey will probably have, affirm this as well. The generational communication is at an all-time state of confusion, if I can put it that way. Because when you get online and you read some things, you're wondering who is talking to who and what is this person essentially saying. Unfortunately, and in most cases, again, unfortunately, many people who will be interested in being government official at any of these, local government or whatever, they are not the average Gen Zs, as Jeffrey would say. They are people perhaps a little older. The way they communicate is different from the way the Gen Z communicates. Unfortunately, as you and Mr. Lawal have said, we seem to have been quote-unquote drugged to only focus on the federal government and the state governments. And now you are calling for a change of mindset.
Yes.
And this change of mindset has to be across board.
Across the board, yes.
How do we get that? Speaking particularly to young people, because in another 10 years from now, the 20-year-old Gen Z will still be Gen Z, but he's 30. In another 20 years, the 20-year-old is 40, and he is no longer the Gen Z of today. So how do we begin this migration, this mindset migration, in a way that it is sustainable, so that we don't find ourselves in this quagmire that we're in right now?
Okay. First of all, government must have, at all levels, must be committed to certain value standards. You understand me? Certain, code of ethical and political behavior. Now, you then appoint people across, divisions who can effectively communicate. You spoke about Gen Zs. Appoint one of them who understand their language, who understand their chemistry, to communicate with them. You don't understand what I'm saying? Yeah. What is lacking essentially is that if you find one of your own as your representative in government, look for all the interest groups and then get people who understand their own language, their own chemistry, their own attitude.
And to communicate with them.
Yes.
Mr. Lawal, do you think that will work?
Good day.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Do you think that council will work?
It might. With everything, there's always the, how would I put it, the Nigerian factor, which we must be afraid of sometimes. And the way I see it, I think the real issue, even if you're going to look at, let's say, our elections or any other parameter, rule of law, whatever, is that most of us, and this is what I critically think, I could be wrong, but this is what I critically think. Most of us are not Nigerian first before we're any other thing. So therein lies our problem. We do not think of a collective identity. We do not operate within a collective prison. And that's what always makes every attempt in which we try to do things in Nigeria kind of, tilt us to a biased angle or to a particular position.
Okay, so the question still goes, and I'm not sure whether you understand what I have said. How does it help the system for instance, Dr. Wahab Shitu to engage 20-year-old Gen Z as chairman of local government, to engage a 20-year-old Gen Z as a spokesperson when both of them probably don't even understand each other's language?
I think there is a common language, and the common language is development. Now, we concentrate so much on trying to speak to Gen Z. Now, if you provided what was available by local government, okay, what are you in charge of? You ensure markets are well sanitized. The parts of the road that are under jurisdiction you can handle. Infrastructure-wise, local government brings in, let's say, a solar center for youth, solar-powered center for youth with internet, and they're teaching them coding. you have already transmitted development to them. The best language in governance is action, or in physical government. So wondering about whether they can converse as a local government chairman to a Gen Z. For me, what are you conversing about? Telling him the functions of a local government or telling him what you intend to do? I prefer the best action being delivery on your deliverables as the best conversation. That's what I would think is the conversation.
We're totally out of time, but I must give you 10 seconds to just your closing thoughts. Lenny.
I think now that greater funds are now being delivered directly to local government councils, and they are sufficiently empowered to be able to, function effectively. Local government, councils will now be used as the engine to drive our environmental process. Everybody should be concerned about what is going on about local government councils. And finally, I think we should communicate more effectively on the functions of local government councils to Nigerians, so that everybody is aware of what local government councils are set up to do. And we should monitor and deliver oversight to ensure they deliver their mandate.
All right, fantastic. Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Dr. Wahab Shitu, always coming through whenever we call. Thank you so much for coming on the program and helping us make sense of what is playing out in Rivers as well as other issues. Kule Lawal of the Executive Director at Electoral College. Thank you, sir, as well for coming on the program. We appreciate you.
Vernacular Heritage Initiative. Now, this is a non-governmental and non-profit organization working to promote the identification, protection, and management of Nigeria's cultural heritage as a contribution to the expression of the world's cultural diversities through strategic services, and through strategic services, it provides access to conservation expertise and skills for all cultural heritage stewards. Dr. Obafemi Olukoya joins us in our Abuja studio. He is a project coordinator and director, Vernacular Heritage Initiative. Thanks so much for joining us this morning, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, one of the things, my colleague here, we were having a conversation, and the first thing he said, wait a minute, why did they have to call it vernacular? Please justify that for us in the first place. Because right now we can say that our language is the language, and English is the vernacular. Is that what you have in mind?
Oh, indeed. Well beyond that, right? So the concept of vernacular just go beyond just mere language. Vernacular means rootedness to a specific place, rootedness to a specific culture, rootedness to a specific geographical location. So it's a common assumption to assume it's only limited to language. So we have vernacular architecture, that is an architecture of a people within a given place, right? So architecture of a people, by a people, and for a people, right? So the concept of vernacular does go way beyond, of course, language. I know commonly it does seem as if it's vernacular, especially also growing up in Nigeria. Growing up, we used to, in school, they used to tell us, don't speak vernacular, that is, don't speak your mother's tongue in school, you should speak English. But I'm just trying to let you know that the concept of vernacular just does transcend language. Language is only one of the many strands of the notion of vernacular. Yes.
I know that there's an advocacy and an advancement you're pushing forward. And let's get to that, which has to do with the rainwater harvesting project. That's for the Kofia Hill settlement as part of your advancement. Maybe let's get straight to that and give us in detail exactly what you're trying to do with this and what it is exactly before we probe even further.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. Like he rightly mentioned, our organization is a non-profit organization, so we are into this sort of humanitarian project, and of course through external fundings from diverse organizations. And for this specific rainwater harvesting project, it's been generously funded by Gedaenke Stiftung, right? And the idea of the rainwater harvesting project, just like the name suggests, is to kind of harvest water for this particular community who has been, of course, without water for several generations on the mountains in Plateau State, right? So the idea is to harvest, to take advantage of this particular rainy season to provide a storage system, which then they will have access to, of course, during the dry spell over there in this particular mountain. And we commissioned this particular project, of course, just on Monday, that is on the 25th of August. The project is also part of the broader framework project, which is targeted at the socio-economic revival of this particular community. And I think your guess is as good as mine. Most communities without water, it's always the women and the children, you know, that bear enormous burden of the absence, or let me say the scarcity of water. In this particular village, every drop, you know, is super important. Their animals die off during dry season. People have to migrate away from the community due to the absence of water. So as one of the objectives, many objectives of the broader project, which is targeted at the socio-economic revival of this community, the rainwater harvesting project started last year, and of course we were able to commission it in August, and now of course we'll be going forward with the monitoring till the beginning of the dry season.
So Gada Hengel has partnered with us. So I'm wondering what they are really all about. That's on one hand, and what are the kind of, in your pitching for this project, because we have to look at sustainability on one hand and look at the implementation in every other site that you may be propping to take part or take this project to. So what exactly is your interest in this? And the reason for this question sometimes has to do with partnership hesitancy as well as intent.
Yes, exactly. So like I said, we are a domestic organization here in Nigeria. You know, many, among others, of our particular initiative is also to bring this sort of social impact projects to diverse communities. So we put together this idea. This is a particular community that we've been working with over the last 5 years. We did architectural restoration there. We did vocational training. We did capacity building. We also built a community center, which is also funded by Gedaenkel Stiftung, right? So our own duty basically is to try to identify such communities, you know, with this kind of lack. Then we put together, of course, an application. We approach diverse institutions. And in this particular instance, Gedaenkel Stiftung is the one that came through and, of course, has been able to sustain the funding to this particular community. Like I mentioned, the rainwater harvesting initiative is only one of the strands of a bigger, broader project, which is targeted at the socio-economic revival of this particular community. The other objective, which we had also recently concluded, including training the youths in this particular community. We trained well over 50 people in this particular community in diverse vocational skills program. Not only limited to that, but we also use the opportunity to ensure that we develop approaches for the sustainability of threatened traditional skills like thatching, like weaving, like traditional hairdressing, and so forth and so on. So we also, you know, engaged in a vocational skill program for such traditional skills also. Besides that, we also provided a solar-powered grinding machine for this particular community. We did also farmers' capacity building, because among others, as you do know, food security is very pivotal to the sustainability of such settlements. And it was already obvious that the crop yields were beginning to, of course, lower over the years, so we did farmers' capacity building also. Then finally, like I mentioned, we constructed the community center where we had shops for the diverse vocational skills to operate, right? So in this community, you have to climb for more than 3 hours before you get to these people. So usually they will go to the lowland area just because they need to sew their clothes. They will go to the lowland area just because they need to barb, and so forth and so on. So ever since our vocational skills program, now they have a shop where now they can operate, and all of this access is now available to those people on the mountain. They do not have to trek 3 hours to the lowland area to have access to any of these services anymore. But of course, like I mentioned already, all thanks to the funding that we received from Gedaenkel Stiftung.
You know, I just yesterday, was it yesterday or even this morning, I saw an image, a story of an island between Kenya and Uganda that houses no more than just about 1,000 people, and they have just one everything. One police station, one toilet for 1,000 people, one this, one that. And they refuse to leave because the fish around that place is quite humongous. So why that came to mind is that you said that we have to climb 3 hours to get to where this place, these people live. 3 hours.
Yes. Yes. So I am very certain about 3 hours if you're a first-time climber, right? But some of us are already familiar with climbing this mountain. We can climb it in around 1 hour, 30 minutes, right? But if you're a first-time climber, I can assure you, once you climb for 5 minutes, you would have to rest. Then you continue again, you climb for some maybe 20 minutes, you stop. So between all of that, of course, you are going to expend 3 hours before you get there. But like I said, some of us are familiar with climbing this mountain. It's about 1 hour, 30 minutes. And it's not even an exaggeration. These people are far away.
What part of Nigeria, what part of Nigeria are you talking about?
I'm talking about Plateau State. Yeah, so this is a community in Kwampan local government area of Plateau State. Yes.
Well, I know that
the Mayang Mountain.
I know that there is a place in Oyo State, the suspended lake. To get to the suspended lake, the only suspended lake, natural suspended lake in the world, you climb something in the region of 45 minutes or thereabout, more or less. I don't know. I hope I got that number right. But to have to climb for 3 hours to a community.
Yes.
It has to take a lot of thinking before you embark on that kind of thing. Well, maybe Jeffrey will want to date one of these days. But the initiative, initiative we just talked about, help us understand how does the infrastructure work? Can you explain the technology to us, in the technology behind it, what you call this simple system? How does it work?
Yes, so what we did when we did a feasibility study initially, before we embarked on this particular rainwater harvesting objective, was we conducted a feasibility study. Our initial idea was to actually dig a borehole, but we realized it's practically impossible. Even if we have sufficient and even enormous investments to dig a borehole, it had a possibility for environmental impact, because there is nearby on that mountain is a volcanic mountain, which means that place is very seismically very sensitive, right? So even if it's going to be very difficult to dig a borehole, the environmental impact in the long run is going to be catastrophic for this particular community. So we thought together, after the feasibility study, what in fact can we do? Then we decided, okay, since they also have good access to rain, I mean the rainfall pattern in the particular place, in this particular community, is quite stable. So we decided, why not? Since they also have a church, they have a couple of buildings in the church, in the particular community with wide roof, besides their vernacular tiny houses, which is built with thatch roof. So we have some 3-4 buildings that is zinc. So we took advantage of the zinc, also considering the fact that the runoff coefficient for the wide span of the roof gives us an advantage to be able to take advantage of the rain. So we decided, of course, then we tie our water collection pipes all around the buildings, and then the water collection pipe leads to the storage tanks. Then from the storage tanks, it goes into the water collection point. One thing that is particularly unique about what we attempted to do here, or what we have done already, excuse me, is that we decided not to use anything mechanical. That is either through a pumping machine or to use maybe a solar-powered pumping machine or whatever. No. What we did here is to rely exclusively on gravity. So the water comes from the roof into the storage tank. Then we sited the water collection points into a place that is a bit lower now from where the water collection point is, which means everything that we do have, all of the infrastructure that we do have here, operates naturally without anything mechanical. And the idea and the main reason behind this is, even while you are traveling to Plateau State, you might probably have noticed this, there's a lot of failed water projects all over the place. And this is simply due to over-reliance on mechanical means. By the time you put in place these pumping machines and all of that, it looks very nice the first year. Then the second year, it requires maintenance. The third year, it's completely broken. And then this sort of community, they do not even have the financial capacity to be able to update it. So this is why we decided that we're just going to leave everything to flow naturally, taking advantage of the gradients that we already have in this particular community. And beyond that, we also have an overhead tank, which is something that is quite interesting. We have an overhead tank in this particular community, which is serving the community center. And how the water gets into the overhead tank and gets into the building is also absolutely using natural gravity. So there's nothing mechanical in this particular place. So it's going to at least potentially require almost zero, let me say, maintenance cost on the part of these people to ensure long-term sustainability. So we put all of this into consideration, given the socio-economic condition of these people. If the borehole breaks down, they do not even have the financial capacity to update it. So this is why we decided to use everything that's natural, taking advantage, again, like I mentioned, of the topography that's available to us in this particular place.
I'm just listening to you. Sound very brilliant. But so that will be absolutely ingenious of what you guys have been able to pull off. So for clarity and context, you're saying that you don't need any form of electricity, any of that, so that we're clear. And is it, you depend solely on rainwater to be able to provide this water, and how much rain happens or in that area?
Yes, absolutely correct. So like I mentioned, we did a feasibility study. We had a clear report on the amount of rainfall per month in this particular community. So on the basis of this, together with the runoff coefficient of the span of the buildings that is available, we calculate also the per capita water need of each of the compound in this particular community. Then we determined the number of sizes of tank and the total number of tanks that is going to be required for this infrastructure to carry them throughout the entire dry months. That is between December, usually, to sometimes in April. So what we have right there, if they will follow our fetching schedule, which is something we have also shown them during our commissioning event, if they are going to follow our fetching schedule between December to April each year, they would be absolutely fine. And this is not just limited to the community where we have the specific infrastructure, because we have more than 11 communities on this particular mountain. However, this particular project is only sited in Kofia settlement. So the neighboring community are also going to be beneficiaries of the water during the dry season. So we did a very careful calculation that if a particular compound has access to 2 of 25 liters water per week, it means multiplied by the total number of compound in 3 different villages, it will, of course, sustain them throughout the entire dry month. So what we are saying right now, of course, these are the water kegs that we distributed to them to ensure the rationing of the water such that they are able to, of course, to continue to have access to it throughout the entire 4 to 5 dry spell.
You know, I just enjoy everything you're saying, and I'm going to ask you about the issue about scaling this. How much are you thinking in that direction? Because especially your per capita component, which is quite brilliant, because you have to look at it needs assessment basis. You know, and it's commendable what you're doing, because I'm sure that when elections come, polling booths find themselves down to that place for people to vote.
Absolutely.
But for development, polling booths, development finds a way not to get there. So you are closing a big gap. How do you intend to scale this?
Yes. We do hope to take this way beyond only this community. The issue of water scarcity in the northern part of Nigeria, not limited to the northern part of Nigeria, really. I think you do agree with me that it's not limited to only this particular community. It's more or less a general problem around Nigeria. So what we are doing now is that hopefully, since now we commissioned this one, we are going to monitor it effectively till, of course, the next raining season. Once we are sure that everything that we have put in place works exactly the way we have planned it, we have the intention, of course, now, to take this elsewhere. Hopefully, we'll be able to get governmental support at this point, and hopefully, maybe we also continue to approach some of our potential funders out there who will be able to see this as a basis of course, supporting us to take this to different other communities in different parts of Nigeria that has a similar problem.
Well, Dr. Olukoya, this is, I don't even know how to put this, but as Jeffrey has said, it's too commendable to ignore, and we can only hope that be the federal, be the state government, or even the House of Assembly in the state would see this and be able to embrace it as well, and as you said, and as Jerry asked, scale it all across the state, and maybe some other people will be able to take it up from there. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Dr. Obafemi Olukoya is Project Coordinator and Director, Vernacular Heritage Initiative, VHI. We appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you very much for having me. And also, lastly, I'd just like also to thank, of course, once again, the founder of this project, Gedai Nkesh Chiftong. Without them, of course, none of this could have been possible. So thank you very much for your time, and yes.
Again, thank you so much for staying with us. Our coverage of the Rivers State local government elections is ongoing, but there's this information that's just come to us, and I hope that the authorities, particularly in Rivers State, will give it attention. Festus says, and this mail came in at about 9:55, I'm presently in Finima, Bonny Island of Rivers State. From my personal observation, there is a general voter apathy. The system is completely undemocratic, whatever that means. But what you're seeing right now is the Minister of the FCT casting his vote at the polling unit that we brought to you earlier, that Kumbi, our colleague, had been telling you about. Is right there now to cast his vote. The process you can see right there, right now. This must be some interesting perspective right now, Jeffrey.
Yeah, that's Rumo Precom, Ward Unit 7. In Rumo Precom, in that particular ward of his local government area. That's Ward 9, Unit 007 in Rumo Precom. This is his village. Okay. You know, Wike is one of those that come from villages that are already city centers. So that's the FCT.
So he was actually waiting for someone to cast his vote before he did his.
Yeah, so voting for the position of chairman of the particular local government area, and then the councillor. So that's the Honorable Minister of the FCT, former Governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Ezenwo Wike, casting his votes at Unit 007, Ward 9, in Rume Precom, in Obiakpo local government area of Rivers State. As a matter of fact, I'm sure this reminds him of 1999. This is where he started his political career from. He served as local government chairman for 2 terms. He's been very fortunate himself, and Rotimi Amechi.
And you know
have been in public service for that long.
What you have said just now, Jeffrey, should be an exciting thing for anyone who cares. And I think he might be able to get him to speak to the media in a bit. Yeah. I'm almost certain that
he will make comment or remarks.
He will make a comment or two, because we'll be able to take him up again on, that comment, that you are making about him starting as a local government chairman. Just how many years now?
This is 26 years.
This is 26 years ago. So whoever was maybe like 20 years old now, 20 years old then, is 46 years old now. Yeah. I will probably have been looking at him that, see this now, what is he going to do? Now, you see how his career has gone. So let's quickly go to there and listen to the minister.
That's the FCT Minister speaking to the press. As soon as we can get clarity as to what he's saying, we'll let you know. But we've seen him come, the queue, surrounded by assistants, aides, and every other person who is a supporter around this area. Unit 007, Ward 9, in Rume Precom of Obiakpo local government area is where he has always did cast his vote since 1999, when he was a local government chairman. He served as 2-term local government chairman, became chief of staff to former Governor Rotimi Amechi, became Minister of State for Education. From there became governor 2 terms, and then from there became now the FCT Minister. So I was saying that Nyesom Wike and Rotimi Amechi are perhaps one of the 2 most fortunate politicians in Nigeria.
In this republic in particular.
Nyesom Wike's political prowess, in my view, has not been tested yet. Because your political prowess is tested when you leave power. From 1999 till, I'm not saying he has done well as a politician, but when you leave power, it's that you know what I'm referencing? Like an Asiwaju who left power for 16 years also.
And still came back. One shot and he became
president at the shot. So, but he's been very fortunate. Local government chairman, chief of staff, two-time minister, I mean, state and now substantive, and then, of course, a governor two-term. Rotimi Amici is literally the same thing. I think just 2 years now he's been out of power since he came into politics. Two-term speaker, two-term governor, and then two-term minister. So both of them, and they always are loggerheads anyway.
Well, just so, you already gave us the analysis earlier. Every successive government is always at variance.
In fact, the way it happens in Rivers State is that they fight themselves, and then, so for instance, Rotimi Amici had issues. Rotimi Amici and Wike worked together. They had issues with Peter Odili, where when Rotimi became governor, he made him chief of staff. And then when Wike wanted to become governor, there was an issue. Then Wike now aligned with Peter Odili, their former enemy.
Well, it's politics.
It's just politics.
Well, as we said, we are continuing this conversation. One of the things we haven't spoken about since we began this conversation is the election observing. The election observation, which is part of our system already. But we have two people to have conversations with us around that one this morning. Obinna Gobidi is a convener at Rivers Peace Initiative. He is right now on the field. He is located at Unit 13, Ward 9, LMA in the LMA local government area. And we also have Cynthia Mbamalu, who is Director of Programs, Yaga Africa. Both of them join us virtually. Cynthia is in Abuja. Thank you for joining us this morning. Let me begin with you, Mr. Gobidi, in Rivers State. What's your assessment so far of the entire procedure? What are the things that you have seen? Elections, did they begin across the state? As about the time that was promised, we recognize that the units, the polling ward of the minister, they just got there not too long ago, and thankfully the whole place is full. The first time we were speaking with them, the place was empty. In no time, the whole place was full. Now the minister has voted. What are the things you have observed on the field today, Mr. Gobidi?
Good morning, and thanks for having me. Good morning also to my boss, Cynthia, Yaga Africa. Okay, so, you know, the procedure for the RSIEC election is slightly different from that of INEC. And so a lot of persons had expected that we are going to commence by 8 a.m. But by the guideline that was made available to us, our distribution started by 6 a.m. and then material sensitive and non-sensitive were moved from the various distribution points across the various local government areas to the wards and the polling units from 8 o'clock, and then by 10 a.m. accreditation and voting started. But what we have observed anyway from some parts of the states, I have been to Obiako and I'm finding the enemy is that there was actually a late arrival of materials in a number of the wards, especially here in Eleme. I'm currently in Ward 9 in Eleme, the place called Aquaju, and materials only left the ward about 35 minutes ago. I'm just behind you. It's called Unit 3 in this ward. Accreditation and voting has eventually started. But then some other units that have been visited, they are about still doing setup. And but the exercise is so far going peacefully. People are turning out in some of the areas that we have visited, but I've also gotten reports from some of my colleagues in other parts of the states that they are witnessing some sort of voter apathy in some places. But in some other places, like Akuputoru, Onelga, we've seen quite an encouraging number of persons participating in the process.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Gobidi. Ms. Mbamalu, your take,
because it's a unique process this time around, having elections in an environment where this is a first, wouldn't you say? No, that's for Ms. Mbamalu, Cynthia Mbamalu.
Okay, can you, I think first is to say good morning and hello, Bina. Good to see you. You said it's an elections happening within a unique situation, and I think it's very important, and we clearly identify that the state government in Rivers State at the moment is unconstitutional because our constitution, like I said, I've always said this, the system existing currently is alien to our constitution. However, the local government elections are required to be held by the constitution also. If you remember that this was an election that was annulled, or rather the October 2024 elections that held at the local government level was annulled by the Supreme Court in February this year. And the Supreme Court had highlighted several grounds for its decision, why that decision was taken. And so if you look at what is happening in Rivers State, one, I'm happy that finally the local government election is happening because we believe in a democratic process where citizens can choose their leaders at the local government level. But then it's not just about the elections happening, it's about the quality of the process. And I think that is where the bigger question is. If, for instance, the decision of the Supreme Court to upturn the last local government election that was held was because the elections, as it had said, the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission at the time did not follow the procedure required by the Electoral Act, then the expectation is that these elections should be conducted in a way that there is due compliance with the Electoral Act, because our Electoral Act in sections 150 has clearly stated that local government elections must be conducted in the same manner as the area council elections are conducted at the Federal Capital Territory. And it says the procedure that regulates area council elections must regulate local government elections henceforth, which is one of the reasons there's an advisory to states to review their state electoral laws to comply with the electoral. So simple things around procedure. If you go to Part 6 of the Electoral Act, it highlights the procedure for local government elections. And then it's clear that the procedure of conducting general elections should apply to local government elections. So as simple as things like the deployment of the bimodal voter accreditation system for accrediting voters ought to be part of the local government elections now by the provisions of the Electoral Act and with the logic of the decision of the Supreme Court, which said that because that local government election of last year did not comply with the procedure in the Electoral Act, that the elections cannot be said to be valid, which that was what the court said. And so following the news today and following the reports from the field in Rivers and observing that there is the application of, the manual accreditation of voters without a compulsory use of the beavers, raises a bigger question on the procedure for the elections complying with the legal framework for elections. And so that's a big question. What is the quality of the elections that will be conducted if the rules of the games are not adequately applied in the local government election? The second thing is around the question of citizens' confidence. And the reports have shown in some places you have lower turnout, as simple as commencement of polls. The commencement of polls started late, even though the guideline has said they will start later, but it still showed late commencement of polls at different local government level. But you're also seeing that there is almost lack of enthusiasm, aside the polling unit where the minister is voting, which we expect the crowd to be there, because usually, unfortunately, when it comes to elections, normally when a political leader is voting, there's always this crowd, people going. It doesn't mean most of the people they are going to vote. Most of them just want to see a political figure voting. But if you look at most of the polling unit that has been showed, because I followed a bit of the live coverage from channels also, you see very few citizens coming out to vote, queuing up to vote. Now, not those standing to watch others vote, those queuing up to vote. And so it's a bigger question around the quality vis-a-vis citizens' enthusiasm to participate. And I think these are issues that we need to look at. If the quality in itself is questionable, if the process is not compliant to the electoral legal framework, how can that inspire citizens' confidence in participating, especially because since last year, there's been a lot of conversations around, one, local government elections must be held. Two, the quality and the process must be in compliance with the Electoral Act in 2022 for which to pass the legitimacy test. And I think at this point, there's a bigger question on the legitimacy of the process beyond just the participation. And I'm hoping that the conversation post the Rivers election is one, and that there needs to be a national consensus on what we want for our local government elections. We can no longer have a system of local governance where the process that elects or the process where leaders emerge is not democratic. We can no longer have a system of local government where the institutions managing the local government elections are not adequately provided with the right autonomy and financial independence to conduct the elections. And we can no longer have a system of local government where there is a pick and choose when it comes to the application of the laws, because if you follow the Supreme Court's decision in February, it's almost as if there was a clear targeting of the local elections conducted in Rivers State, because we've seen several other states flout the provisions of the Electoral Act in the local government elections, but nothing has been done to hold them accountable. We've not seen those elections overturned. So the bigger question is, do we also have a system where there is a bias in the application of the rules, especially when their political interests are at play? Or do we want a local government system where truly the laws apply equally across board, the system itself upholds the provisions of the law and inspires the confidence of the people? We keep watching to see how local governments, these elections will go on in Rivers State, but honestly, I'm not very inspired. I'm not very enthusiastic about the outcome of the elections, because it's almost as if the outcome is determined before the process. And I'm hoping that for voters who are watching, that they are inspired to at least come out, because your turnout can actually influence the outcome of the elections. But as it is, it's not very inspiring, and we're hoping for better local government elections moving forward.
All right, Cynthia, I'm going to stay with you before I go to our guest in Port Harcourt, and for good reasons as well, because I know the Yaga Africa played a key role in all of this, but the political class have looked for a way to just subvert the system one way or the other. As a matter of fact, we're all witnesses to the fact, I think I referenced this earlier when the senior advocate was here, the Constitution does not recognize transition committee, doesn't recognize caretaker committee, all of the nomenclature they used to append to administrations in local government area without electing officials. Some of them stay there for like 3-4 years. So governments at state levels were carrying out direct affronts on our ground norm until the current AGF said that has to stop immediately, which is why all of a sudden everybody now has time to do local government election, because they know that if you don't, there's no money coming to you. And look at the one that happened in Lagos State. 103 of the Constitution is very clear, of the Electoral Act is very clear that, look, 30 days is the least it should be before election must be conducted before the incumbents leave office. But they did it less than that. And they were taken to court. And guess what? The court has, that case will be heard in February next year. Interesting things happen. Now let's come to what's going on now in Rivers State. This same Rivers State got a landmark judgment, if you will, or a locus classicus. 150 of the Electoral Act was the basis for cancellation of October election. And now that is being rolled on his head. The law says that the elections that are conducted in local government in the FCT area, that same law that INEC used to conduct those elections must have this. The language of the law is the same and apply with equal force. Equal force. As a matter of fact, subsection 3 says any election to a local government area that is conducted by a state commission in violation of subsection 1, which I just quoted, is invalid.
Yes.
And then we are conducting the election. What precedents do you think we're really setting? What exactly are we doing?
You know, ours sometimes it's like a theater of absurdities. Sometimes you're not sure if we are all reading the same law, understanding it in the same way. and understanding its interpretation. And I'm glad you read sections 150, because that was an important review to the Electoral Act. And I'll just take us through a bit of the journey to this Electoral Act 2022, because I mean, Yaga Africa and other civil society partners worked hard to achieve these reviews to the law. And that was because there was there was a conversation around the lack when it came to local government elections. And because the Constitution gives National Assembly power to also make laws that regulate local elections, requiring state assemblies to amend their laws to comply with the amendments of the National Assembly, there was that belief that, okay, the National Assembly can provide a framework in the Electoral Act for local government elections, and then states would comply. That was why that was the journey to this decision, to this review of the Electoral Act of 2022, because the idea was, can we provide some sanity to the conduct of local government elections to ensure that they are consistent and to ensure that they are done in a way that guarantees confidence. So post that, we've had states try to do whatever they want to do. Some states amended their laws to comply a bit to the Electoral Act, while some were not quick to do so. Last year, the Supreme Court gave that judgment in June 2024. And then this year, the Federal Supreme Court also gave a judgment in February 2025. And all of these conversations were basically to strengthen the application of sections 150 of the Electoral Act, which you have read. When it comes to the process of electoral local government elections, the rules that apply to the local area council elections must apply with equal force for the local government elections at the state level. And then if you read sections 150 sub 1, it takes us to the procedure of local government of area council elections, which is seen under part 6 of the Electoral Act. Now, if you read part 6, if you read sections 103 sub 3, it talks about when it comes to how candidate nomination is done, and how elections are conducted in the area council must be in the same manner as the general elections are conducted under the Electoral Act. What does this tell us clearly? Things as simple as timeline for elections, that elections to local government must be conducted not earlier than 150 days and not later than 30 days to the expiration of term of the local current or the serving local government authority. And I'm glad you mentioned Lagos, because Lagos did not follow that rule. But we see what is happening with the interpretation when it came on Lagos, where we wait for the final decision, hopefully. Now, that's one part. The other part talks about things like the procedure. So what is the procedure? The Electoral Act now introduced electronic accreditation of voters, 1. It introduced a system of results management, 2, which is expected that for the local government elections, as simple as electronic accreditation of voting must be mandatory in the process. Why? The BVAS was introduced to limit multiple voting and to ensure that truly one person, one vote is the rule. And that is why it was introduced. And the act is clear. If the BVAS is not used, the result for those polling units ought to be cancelled. But we're seeing an electoral process happening at Rivers State now, where this particular provision of the act is not enforced or part of the process. The other, Rivers gave us a landmark decision in February, because Rivers was what brought us here. And the Supreme Court was clear. The procedure, in fact, the Supreme Court, in nullifying that election, talked about notice of election that as simple as application of the rule when it came to release of the timeline for notice of election was not was not done. So that elections cannot hold because the provisions on notice of election in the Electoral Act was not applied. So the Supreme Court did not even focus on just the procedure. It went to basic things as timelines and notice and how issuing of notice ought to be done. And so if we're moving from February 2025 and we're just in August 2025, the expectation is that the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission, in the conducting or in the management of this process, we would review its guidelines to ensure that things as simple as procedure are strictly adhered to when it comes to elections administration. But we are in a situation, like I said, it's a theater of absurdities, where it seems that the rules apply when a player is not in the favored camp, and the rules do not apply when you are amongst those in the favored camp. And that is not how democracies run. Democracies are sustained when the rules, the constitution, the electoral, and the legal framework are strictly adhered to. There is uniformity in compliance and there is uniformity in application. That's one. Democracies are sustained when institutions created by law are bound by the laws of which they are created. Democracies are sustained where there is no bias in the application of the rules. And I'm always clear around this because we cannot choose and pick when it comes to the application of the laws. We need to ensure that application is clear and it's adhered to. That's where you reduce and limit impunity, because we are building for the future, not just for today. And so if it comes to conduct of local government elections, what are we saying? That if Rivers, for instance, happens, what we're saying is that every other state can decide not to use as simple as the beavers in the administration of their elections. It means that states can decide what to choose, and then only states that are falling out from the favored camp would have the elections questioned in court. And we see this happening. We have conversations with state independent electoral commissions. Some of them are very, very clear on wanting to comply with the rules, while others are not very enthusiastic about complying with the rules. At least I know that from February, we have states that have reached out to Yaga Africa to ask us simple things around what is the implication of the Supreme Court on Rivers State? How does that affect us? And then we provided advisory to them, or this is what you need to do. But it's so funny that while you're providing advisory to some states on how they need to ensure their laws are compliant and their guidelines are compliant, that you also have other states that are not interested in that because they know that at the moment, no matter what happens, no one will hold them accountable. And so for me, the bigger question is, honestly, can we start having conversation on what do we want for local government elections, for our local government system? That is an important tier of government. If you, earlier in the conversation, you read out the fourth schedule of the Constitution, and you mentioned, I think, I can't remember which of you mentioned that the local government's role is so critical that most times we even see states doing that. I'll take Abuja as a simple example. There are certain things that are within the provisions or the mandate of our area councils that most times we are not even holding them accountable.
All right,
that has not
Cynthia,
stopped
if you can hear me.
from coming to them. And has not stopped them from collecting tax. And so we need to start reviewing how we engage local government. That is an important tier of government.
Cynthia, can you hear me?
Our democracy would work in Nigeria.
All right, fantastic points you've raised. I think all of us are clear on what the law says. It's just we need to close mark politicians because it looks like while everybody wants to go this way, some politicians want to go that way. The only way we can be together is by the rule of law. There's no other way. The rule of law is the way. But we see these things happening before us, and sometimes the Supreme Court has made a clear pronouncement, which is when we're talking to the senior advocate. He didn't want to speak about issues that are in court. I said, no. There's a locus classicus. Let's talk about an already final issue. Let's get to Ms. Obina, who is in Port Harcourt. Ms. Obina, I know you had given us a bit of a review of what is going on, but maybe tell us in terms of compliance and what you've heard. If there are questions asked about at least things like electronic beavers, for instance, being used for election. Because for us, journalists and civil society and the rest of us, we're just interested in the procedure. Whoever wins or loses is really none of our business. That's left for the politicians. Talk to us about procedure that you've observed, the procedure of this particular election.
Too much. That seems has raised some very valid points about the conduct of elections and what ought to do in a normal living house. And I like the fact that he talked about how one politicians keep directing us to a particular circle. I think I would call it a circle of a theater of absurdity. And so we are having this election first under these conditions as uncharitable and quite unacceptable to some persons as it might be. Because there is a state.
All right, Obina, maybe we'll come back. We'll come to you in just a moment. Apparently, we're having a signal issue with you with your connection, so maybe we'll get back to Cynthia. I'm sure you have questions for Cynthia.
The issues that both of them are raising, what is concerned? Maybe I should even ask you, Ms. Mbamalu, let's talk about the observation, the procedures that we have seen. So far, you already said that you're not particularly enthused by what is happening. I don't think that we will ever get to a point where we're enthused. And trust me, we are never going back to 1993. That year is gone. Someone cited earlier in our conversation today that the last time we had elections that people were as excited as getting up to like 50% of our voting population out was in 2015. That's what, 11 years ago? Here we are now. How concerning is it for you, madam, that the lowest, the least patronized election in Nigeria is the most important one?
The way the expression on your face already shows me that even you're at the point of asking, what else can we do? This can't be it for us, because the truth is we can't afford to give up. And that's why the media, civil society still plays an important role. It's concerning that this most important level are seen most times as the least important, even the way it's covered, and I think I must commend channels for even bringing this as part of a live conversation, because most times people don't even follow local government elections because we don't even have a lot of media covering what is happening there. But I always say that our democracy is still young, we're growing and we're learning, but we cannot afford to keep making the mistakes we've made in the past. 20-something, 25 or 26 years old, I'm missing the number of the age of our democracy at this point. But for all intent and purpose, our democracy we can be said to be Gen Z. And so the bigger question is, what do we do from here? We have our constitution, we have an electoral act, we have precedents from the courts. So can we begin using these instruments, these decisions from the court, as a means of engaging for future local government elections? That's one. The second is we can't take the people out of this equation. Our political class by nature are mischievous. They would look for ways to undermine the process. So as much as a lot of work has been done in strengthening institutions or the processes at the national level and even moving to the local government level, the bigger question is, do we have a political class that is willing to allow the system to work for the people? And the truth is no. And so we're not going to rely on the benevolence of our political leaders to get things to work. We need to get back to the people. The media platforms, these places of engagement, how can we get Nigerians to be conscious enough to ask
just 1 second, if you can hear me,
begin to engage local government election like they would the presidential elections? And then the third part is we have to keep fixing the system. If the system is transparent and credible, people will be inspired. And then if you have candidates that inspire confidence and motivate the people...
Well, just 1 second, madam. What you said, yes, a little while ago, it's a little concerning. The fact that we don't give the people their right of place in the entire scheme of things. Now, I was discussing in our earlier conversation, we highlighted a crucial issue. And one of our guests said that our voting population is made up of about 65% young people. A good number of that population are Gen Zs. Interesting that he said that even our Fourth Republic is Gen Z by its own nature. How do we engage them? Because they are the largest voting public, but they are the least engaged. So how do we cross that Rubicon? How do we evolve from that?
We have to meet them where they are, where they engage and converge the most. And I think part of the means of engagement honestly, is social media is one of the spaces where we've had a lot more conversations on several issues. When an issue starts to trend on social media, I see younger people begin to engage on those issues. And I think that is a good platform for engaging younger people. But also, a lot of young people want to be heard. They want to be seen. They want to feel like they are part of something. And I think, I do believe actually that in our engagement strategy moving forward, especially as we move to the next general elections, the Electoral Commission is conducting a CVR now. If you look at the data released, I think last week, about 1.something million Nigerians have registered, and that population, majority of them are Gen Zs. And so that is an important voting population and power block that we have to engage. But honestly, we have to diversify our approach of communication and conversations. Young people are not reading newspapers. They are not watching not long conversations on mainstream media. Most of them are engaging on TikTok and Twitter and Instagram and the most of the other social media platforms. So we have to begin to simplify these conversations. Why is democracy important? Why is participation important? Why is your vote important? Simplify it and make it interesting in such a way that they would be.
That is one way to look at it. Madam, if you can hear me.
Meeting them on the platforms that they engage. That's one. The second is we cannot afford to ignore the places of, the traditional places of engagement as religious places of worship. A lot of them still converge there. Civic education needs to be part of the conversations in our places of worship now. Civic participation and civic consciousness needs to be part of the conversation. But the truth of the matter is...
I don't know if you can hear me. Do you think it's plausible or realistic to tweak the laws to suit the next generation? And if you would recommend that, what needs to change?
Sorry, can you take that again?
Do you think there is a need for us to tweak the laws to suit that voting public, which is the larger of all the publics that vote in Nigeria? And if you agree, what needs to change in the electoral process itself?
Oh, yes. I do believe that young people care about technology. So we need to review our Electoral Act to enable more technology in the process. Because for them, if they don't see it, they would not believe. And technology enables you to follow the story, to follow the numbers, to follow the data. So one thing is important, this electoral reform process. The compulsory use of electronic transmission of results as a part of the results management process is important. Young people will trust the process if they believe that they can follow the results from the polling units to the final point of collation. And so electronic transmission of results is non-negotiable. I do believe that that is one thing that this electoral reform process can achieve in this phase. The other part is as simple as reviewing how voting is done. Why do we still need permanent voters card? A lot of young people, for them, why do I need a PVC when my biometrics are in the beavers? And so reviewing that compulsory use of the PVC so that the process is simplified. Look at the journey. You come out to register, you have to queue. Then you have to come back to collect your PVC, you have to queue. Then you have to come and vote, you have to queue. So can we reduce the stress of the process by saying, okay, once you've registered and we verified that you're registered, on election, you don't need to come out again for a PVC collection process. On elections day, any national identification can serve as long as the beavers can accredit you, then you are allowed to vote. I think that is also important because a lot of young people do not want too much stress. This generation of Gen Zs are not good with stress. And I think that is something that the Electoral Act can achieve. And then we can begin exploring electronic voting.
Cynthia, we're totally out of time, if you can hear me.
Yes, please.
Yeah, my apologies. If you can hear me, I know that there's a lot of reviews that has to be done. Some are already there. It's just that politicians will not allow it work. All of us know that's the reason why these things don't work. But we must thank you so much. Cynthia Mbamalu, Director of Programs, Yaga Africa, joining us virtually to give us all of the expertise and the great work Yaga Africa has done to bring us here, and more work that needs to be done with the cooperation. Maybe we'll have to take politicians for a special retreat to appeal. I don't know.
They need it.
They need it. And then Obinna Ebogidi is the convener, Rivers Peace Initiative. Fortunately, couldn't get all the everything we needed from him because of network. But thank you both for coming on the program. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's the show today. Don't worry, Channels Television is not taking a break. We'll continue to give you what do we call that? Blow-by-blow accounts of
continuous coverage.
How the elections in River State is going, as well as some of our other amazing programs just for you. I'm Ayo Makinde. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
And I'm Jeffrey Ozama. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.